This man only created a single heart of magic, and it stunned his imperial uncle, who had been teaching him, on the spot. Because in everyone's eyes, he had always been a useless prince despised by all. But no one knew, the prince standing here was no longer the original person. His body had long since been taken over by a sword. And all of this must be told from several hundred years ago. There was once a divine sword in the world, desired and pursued by countless heroes. Over the long years, it witnessed wars and calamities, and also the birth and fall of heroes. Until it met its closest friend, a boy from an unknown village, Leon Burke. They traveled the world side by side, stepped onto countless battlefields, and accomplished feats beyond anyone's reach. In the end, they even slew the white dragon entrenched atop Frost Mountain. Because of this, Leon Burke became the ruler of a nation. But good times always come to an end. The king could not escape birth, aging, sickness, and death, and left this world. Before dying, he held the close friend who had fought beside him all his life and instructed it to take care of his descendants. This is the story of when I was still a sword, and also the reason I appeared here. But why is it so noisy outside today? Could it be that some fool who doesn't know his own limits wants to possess me again? Impossible. I already have someone I acknowledge. Starting today, I am the master of this sword. The guards standing nearby were dumbfounded and hurriedly warned the eldest prince, Adrian, that no one but the king was allowed to touch this divine weapon. Gruhan was stunned after hearing this as well. You are actually telling me that this pig-like thing is a king? Back then, he was so majestic, so dazzling. But why are his descendants like pigs? It seems I need to take a good look at him. Thinking this, the Protagones activated the skill judgment. The next second, Adrian's personal information appeared directly before the Protagones' eyes. Judging from this, he really is my friend's descendant. But I still can't figure it out. How could he have produced a child like this, like a pig? And as the bloodline of a sword saint, he can't even lift a sword. Is he even worthy? At that moment, Adrian spoke. He no longer wanted to be looked down upon by the nobles and the king. Please lend me your power, great dragon-slaying sword Gruhan. The Protagones only felt it was absurd. Lend my power to this pig? Then I'd truly be crazy. The guards also hurriedly tried to persuade him. Whatever you do, don't draw the sword inside the palace. If the king finds out, we'll all die. Are you all looking to die? How dare you point fingers at me? Or is it that, you're afraid I might obtain Gruhan's power? The Protagones felt this child was overthinking it, and coldly said in his heart, give it a rest. Trash like you could never obtain my power. Just then, Adrian suddenly toppled toward the ground. As a treasured sword, the Protagones instantly pierced Adrian's body. This scene frightened all the guards and maids out of their wits. But the most confused person was actually the Protagones. Clearly the one who had been stabbed was that brat. So why was his own consciousness also starting to go dark? If this keeps up, after being a sword for so many years, I may faint for the first time. Before he could finish the thought, the Protagones completely lost consciousness. Adrian was the kingdom's first heir to the throne. But in the entire kingdom, not a single person supported his succession. Because he had not inherited even the slightest talent for swordsmanship from the royal family, yet his arrogance was unmatched. Incompetent, greedy, foolish, and lazy. His existence was like a dark cloud weighing on the kingdom's future. But after he was stabbed by the sword and woke up from the brink of death, strange rumors began to spread. Everyone felt that the eldest prince had changed. He no longer threw tantrums at everyone like before. Some said he had awakened after brushing against death. Others said a person's nature could not change, and it was only a matter of time before he revealed his true colors again. Of course, these words also reached Adrian's ears. But he did not care at all, because something even more terrifying had happened to him. I actually killed my friend's descendant, and took over his body. A few more days passed. Early in the morning, a maid came to report that the king was on his way. The Protagones only felt that it was impossible. When the original owner had been on the verge of death, this father had not even spared him a glance. But before he could finish speaking, a man was already standing behind the maid. I didn't expect that after walking through Death's Gate, your conduct would still be this vile. The moment these words were spoken, the Protagones froze on the spot. Who is this old man? I didn't expect you to pretend not to know me. What? You don't want to acknowledge our master-disciple relationship anymore. So the other party was this pig's master. The Protagones could only force himself to smooth things over. My head feels like mush. You seem very familiar, but I can't remember who you are. The man had not expected this either and was just about to press further. When an attendant came to report, the king had arrived. The Protagones immediately became interested. This pig's father was probably no better. But in the next moment, a tall and powerfully built man appeared before him. I thought the bloodline of lions had long been worn down into dogs by time. But this king looks acceptable. He really does have a bit of my close friend's former bearing. The king's face immediately darkened. You don't even greet your father when you see him? It seems that not even experiencing death can change you. The original owner's master quickly explained. I have just learned that His Highness's memory seems unstable. I suggest having the royal physician examine His Highness." Soon, the royal physician entered the room. But no matter how he examined him, he found no problem. I judge that this may be a temporary symptom caused by psychological shock. After hearing this, the king's expression turned even colder. "Do you think that by saying, 'I don't remember,' you can wipe the slate clean on the past? I had thought you were still salvageable. Everyone makes mistakes. As long as you can admit your mistakes and stop repeating them, that can also count as growth. But now you say you've forgotten, and you want to easily erase everything?" The king flew into a rage, and the master immediately stepped forward to persuade him. His Highness may truly remember nothing. After saying this, he signaled everyone to take care of Adrian, then left with the king. The Protagones could not understand what exactly the original owner had done to incur such universal wrath. This treatment was not merely unfit for a prince, it was as if he was not even being treated like a person. But before he could finish thinking, the queen rushed in and held him tightly. She comforted him as she said his memory would recover soon. And even if it did not matter, because the past was unimportant. Even if you remember nothing, it's no big deal. My poor child, your handsome face has become so haggard. The Protagones could not understand at all. Where exactly did she see handsome, and where did she see haggard? Don't touch such dangerous things again in the future. I'm truly afraid you might never wake up again. The Protagones felt his scalp go numb from hearing this. Is it reasonable for the descendant of a sword saint's bloodline not to touch a sword? And besides, your child is already thoroughly dead. In the blink of an eye, night fell. After being tormented by the queen for an entire day, the Protagones' face was filled with utter lifelessness. Just then, the queen said she would come see him again tomorrow. The Protagones went completely numb and screamed inwardly, "You really shouldn't come, things are awkward enough already. My close friend entrusted me with taking care of his descendants, but I personally killed one of them. I didn't mean to, but it has already happened. All I can do now is live well for both of us. But what can I do? I was once only a sword. My whole life, I accompanied others into battle and cleaned up their messes. The only thing I know is swordsmanship. Now this body is like a pig, and it has no talent at all. But this is not yet the worst of it. I will definitely cultivate my power again." Thinking of this, the Protagones decided to first condense a heart of magic. As he took a deep breath, a massive amount of magic power instantly surged into his body. But in the next second, his heart sank. Just as the magic entered, it dissipated completely in an instant. Is it because the body can't withstand it? Then I'll lower the intensity and try again. But no matter how many times he repeated it, the magic still turned into nothingness the moment it entered. This body was absurdly weak. If only I could use my original body again. I can't stand this pitiful body for even a second longer. At that moment, the voice of a maid came from outside the door. "This is the restorative medicine Her Majesty the Queen ordered me to deliver. Although it is very bitter, it will be greatly beneficial to your recovery. Please also understand Her Majesty the Queen's sincere concern." After saying that, the maid stared at the Protagones trembling with fear. She thought to herself, he won't be like before and smash the bowl the moment he picks it up, will he? But in the next second, what she saw was, the Protagones frozen stiff in place like an idiot. Because he sensed it, there was actually magic power in the medicine. The next moment, the Protagones snatched up the cup, then he gulped it down in several swallows. In almost the blink of an eye, he drank the entire bowl of medicine without leaving a single drop. The maid was completely dumbfounded and thought, this prince really has changed. At this moment, the Protagones reminded her calmly, "You may leave now." After the maid withdrew, the Protagones decided to try once more. To his surprise, this time he really succeeded. But the magic power was still very little, and it could not be maintained for long. Thinking of this, the Protagones turned around and went to find the maid who had just delivered the medicine. "In the future, bring me more of this stuff." A few more days quickly passed. Today, the Protagones was finally able to create a heart of magic. He had taught this countless times, so even with his eyes closed, nothing should have gone wrong. But in the next second, his body felt as if it were burning, and explosive pain suddenly tore through him. In an instant, countless images flooded his mind. These were the processes of when he had helped others create hearts of magic. Only then did he understand. So creating a heart of magic was actually this painful. Even worse was this, the more it hurt, the less he could afford to faint. Once he lost consciousness at this step, the magic power would flow backward, and he would never be able to possess magic again for the rest of his life. In the next moment, the Protagones forced all his attention to its limit. The magic power rampaging through his body was finally subdued by him bit by bit. Under his guidance, the magic power slowly flowed along the path of the heart and ultimately merged into it. Very soon, the heart of magic was complete. A powerful sense of satisfaction instantly surged into the Protagones' mind. Come to think of it, this is still the first time I've possessed a heart of magic of my own. Suddenly, a status window popped up before the protagonist. The protagonist was startled on the spot. Wasn't this the authority he had possessed when he was still a sword? Why could it still appear now? In the next moment, the pop-up displayed, restoring Link. Immediately after, another line appeared, Link restored. But the state is extremely unstable, most permissions are currently unavailable. Third eye permission can be used to an extremely limited extent. You will see more clearly. Third ear permission can be used to an extremely limited extent. You will hear more clearly. He had not expected that even though he was no longer a sword, he could still use these permissions. Thinking of this, the protagonist turned his gaze toward the big tree outside the window. The scene in his field of vision instantly seemed to be brought closer and magnified. His hearing also stretched farther. Even the faint noises outside the door were crystal clear to him, something he absolutely could not have done before. It seemed that the absolute senses he had possessed as a sword had returned in this body. But in the next second, the status window popped up with magic power exhausted, and the permissions were forcibly terminated. A wave of dizziness instantly rushed to his head. Only then did he realize, those absolute senses had not truly returned. Right now I can only squeeze out a tiny bit of magic power, and it is only enough to let me see a little more clearly, or eavesdrop on the sounds outside the door. But as long as I can expand my magic capacity, the situation will be completely different. The absolute senses I had as a sword will return to me sooner or later. But in the next moment, the protagonist's stomach growled. Why do humans have to eat at all? Not long after, the queen came to the protagonist's room again. The moment the protagonist saw the queen, his face was full of utter lifelessness, and he thought, today I'm going to suffer again. But today the queen only gave him a few gentle rubs before sitting down to the side. Then a man walked up to the protagonist, and the queen asked from the side whether he recognized him. The protagonist shook his head, indicating that he did not. Seeing this, the imperial uncle concluded that the protagonist had truly lost his memory. Otherwise he could not possibly remain so calm and neither servile nor overbearing in front of him. I called you here today because I hope you can help this child's elder brother. After all, no matter what he was like before, he is still your only nephew. But the imperial uncle said there was no need for the protagonist to change anything, since his past life had not been all that great anyway. If you really want me to help, all I can do is train him a little. I can't do anything else, so you'd better not hold any unrealistic expectations. The queen nodded and said that would be enough. Then our deal is complete. The protagonist was full of question marks. What deal? What are you talking about? Aren't you brother and sister? But before he could figure it out, the imperial uncle had already walked up to him. In the next moment, the protagonist was thrown directly onto the training grounds. You don't think I'll serve you like a prince, do you? From now on, what you eat, what you drink, and even what air you breathe will all require my approval. If I find you pleasing to the eye, I might teach you a little of the basics of the family swordsmanship, but if I don't like the look of you, the protagonist only found it absurd. These people actually dared treat him like this. He was the mentor who had taught the founding king, but he also knew clearly that he was no longer the former sword person. Thinking this, the protagonist immediately suppressed his emotions and adjusted his mindset again. Do you dare make a bet with me? In just half a year, I'll make you acknowledge me. If I fail, I'll listen to you and let you deal with me however you want. But if I succeed, you must grant my wish. The imperial uncle felt that after losing his memory, this brat had actually become rather interesting. Since I could use some entertainment anyway, I'll agree to it. And so, the protagonist's training officially began. He had spoken very firmly, but this pig-like body was truly beyond words. In the next moment, the protagonist mobilized all the magic power in his body, planning to burn off the excess fat by running. The imperial uncle was shocked on the spot. He had not expected this useless prince to actually know how to use magic power. He immediately called out to stop the protagonist. You created a heart of magic? The protagonist immediately became smug. You mean this? I accidentally made it back then. What, are you regretting betting with me already? What nonsense are you talking about? Do you still not know where you went wrong? Where exactly did you learn the method for creating a heart of magic? Don't you know, this is only a low-level technique used by low-grade mercenaries. The protagonist grew anxious and pressed the imperial uncle on what exactly he meant. In the next moment, a chain of magic appeared in the imperial uncle's hand. Without wasting a single word, he raised his hand and blasted it straight at the protagonist. The protagonist's magic power was instantly shattered and completely dissipated. The protagonist was stunned on the spot. Do you understand now? The chain of magic naturally suppresses the heart of magic and can directly shatter it, and it is easier to create and more stable. Even the Eli family, which insisted on using the heart of magic, declined completely 100 years ago. The protagonist froze completely. Could it be that the era of the heart of magic had already ended? So he began frantically searching through materials, and in the end came to only one conclusion. The times had changed. Now, mages would construct magic circles. and knights would weave chains of magic to gather magic power. A knight's rank was also divided by the number of chains of magic: single chain, double chain, triple chain, quadruple chain, and the current highest, 5 chain. But what the Protagones cared about most was a name that appeared in the book: Arltringen. He felt like he had heard that name somewhere before. If he remembered correctly, that was an odd person, one who used neither swordsmanship nor magic. Unfortunately, he could not remember what had happened to that person afterward. Soon, time came to the next day. Early in the morning, the Protagones arrived at the training ground. At that moment, the Imperial Uncle also arrived and directly asked whether he had gone to the library to look through materials last night. If you checked, then you should understand what era this is now, right? Do you still think your choice isn't foolish? But the Protagones smiled. I don't think I'm wrong at all. It's normal that you don't want to admit it, considering you were never much to begin with. Just as the Imperial Uncle finished speaking, he saw the Protagones slowly condensing magic power in his palm. You probably haven't heard this before. Not all hearts of magic are the same. They also differ in rank. No matter how much you argue, it won't change reality. People like you have also appeared among mercenaries. They hypnotize themselves, believing that using a heart of magic would turn them into heroes from hundreds of years ago. But do you know what happened to them? They all died. Many people spend their whole lives without ever breaking through to 2 chains. And you want to tell me you're different from them? Then go defeat a 2-chain knight. If you do that, then as your mother said, I will become your guardian. After hearing this, the Protagones actually laughed instead. I never really wanted you to be my guardian that badly. Besides, do you even have the qualifications? Hearing this, the Imperial Uncle's expression instantly darkened. Are you questioning whether I am qualified to be a guardian? I am a Count of the Kingdom, Supreme Commander of the Northern Army, Grand Commander of the Black Spear Cavalry, and one of the 5 Silver Lions who serve His Majesty. I have woven a 4-chain chain of magic. As soon as he finished speaking, the ground beneath their feet suddenly trembled violently. My name is Val of House Balakard. Now tell me, am I qualified enough to be your guardian? The Protagones had not expected that one casual remark from him would set the other party off like this. The titles did sound frightening, but could he stop already? If this keeps up, this body is really going to fall apart. At that moment, the royal guards at the side moved. They raised their swords and pointed them straight at the Imperial Uncle, shouting sternly, "Stand down. You still haven't answered me. Am I qualified now?" And so, the Protagones' training officially began just like that. After the training ended, the Protagones did not even have the strength to walk. He had a feeling that if the training went on any longer, his life would be left there. This body is only 15 years old. Can I report him for abusing a minor? Probably not. Soon, the Protagones returned to his room. There, he saw that the royal physician was already waiting inside. The Protagones asked in confusion what the physician had come for, and the physician explained, "Her Majesty the Queen sent me. She was worried that you might feel unwell after training, so she asked me to come treat you. Then let us begin the treatment, Your Highness." The moment he heard this, the Protagones became alert. "If you heal me, then wouldn't all the suffering I went through today be for nothing?" After saying that, he directly drove the royal physician out the door. The guard at the side also felt that the eldest prince really had changed, especially on the training ground, where he had shown a toughness unlike before. Soon, the Protagones' stomach started growling again. "Let's eat first." A maid brought the meal into the Protagones' room. Just then, someone barged in through the door without the slightest courtesy. The Protagones only felt that this person had no manners at all. Daring to interrupt someone else's meal was simply a capital offense. And who was this guy? At that moment, a guard quietly reminded him. This was the 3rd prince. "I heard something happened to you, so I came to take a look. Now it seems you're not really in any trouble after all. Say what you came to say. If you're here to pick a fight, then go do something useful instead." The 3rd prince had not expected that this idiot who had stabbed a sword into his own body would actually talk back to him. He was trembling with anger, but forcibly held it in and still stated his purpose. "I came because I heard you made a bet with Count Balakard and are going to duel a 2-chain knight. So I want to ask, may I be your opponent?" After saying that, he turned and left. The Protagones had no idea what this guy was thinking. But why did every one of Leonberg's descendants seem more outrageous than the last? Whether it was the original owner of this body or that 3rd prince, both made him want to beat them up. The guard reminded the Protagones that it would be best not to accept 3rd Highness's challenge, and the Protagones asked in confusion why. The guard explained that although the 3rd prince was only 14 years old, he had displayed astonishing talent in swordsmanship since childhood and was already a 2-chain knight. Just then, a maid walked in carrying a huge stack of letters. She said that all of these letters were addressed to the Protagones. The Protagones was even more puzzled. These people had clearly ignored the original owner before. So why had they suddenly become so enthusiastic now? As he spoke, the Protagones began opening and reading the letters. But after reading a few, he froze. because without exception, every one of these letters was applying for a fencing duel with him. It seemed they were treating this as a legal chance to beat me up. But do I really look that weak? Thinking this, the protagonist turned his gaze to the maid beside him. Make sure you write down every sender's name clearly for me. Soon, time came to the next day. The moment he arrived at the training ground, the imperial uncle tossed a wooden sword in front of the protagonist. Next, I'll teach you a bit of swordsmanship. I don't want to hear excuses like, I've never learned swordsmanship after you lose. The protagonist thought to himself that this old man's temper was really strange. If he was going to teach, couldn't he just hand over the sword properly? He bent down, preparing to pick up the wooden sword on the ground. But the moment his hand gripped it, every muscle in his body began to convulse violently, with tearing pain shooting through him. And even the imperial uncle was stunned by the sight. You didn't receive healing magic after yesterday's training? The protagonist immediately nodded. Healing magic would restore my muscles to their original state. If I got treated, then yesterday's suffering would have been for nothing. The imperial uncle had not expected this child to be this tough, and his evaluation of the protagonist instantly rose by a level. But he still said coldly, as you wish. Now watch carefully. This is a basic technique all knights of the kingdom know. I won't demonstrate it a second time. After saying that, the imperial uncle gripped his sword and demonstrated basic swordsmanship in front of the protagonist. But even though they were only plain fundamental movements, in his hands the sword still cut through the air with a fierce howl, and the protagonist stood there in shock. Only after the imperial uncle finished did he ask hesitantly, this move is really just a basic sword form now? The imperial uncle thought the other party was nitpicking, and immediately clicked his tongue in displeasure. It's precisely because it's basic that I haven't used it in a long time. It's the most faithful, and the easiest to learn. But with your talent, even this may be too difficult for you. Instead, the protagonist was stunned after hearing this. Who would have thought, the dragon-slaying form used by the man who founded this country has now become a basic sword move. Is this really ordinary training? I may not have read much, but don't fool me. At this moment, the imperial uncle added, even if you learn this, you still won't win the bet. Once you've mastered the basics, have your mother hire you another teacher. But the protagonist said he would not learn any other swordsmanship again. Mastering this alone would be enough. And the imperial uncle felt that this child really was different now. Though if the hand with which he held the sword were not trembling so badly, he would have looked more convincing. Very soon, the protagonist's sword training officially began. The once dragon-slaying form was actually being treated as ordinary training content. He did not want to admit it, but perhaps this was the result of the times. Because they held the dragon-slaying sword in their hands, yet had long since lost the will to slay dragons. And those who had abandoned the heart of magic would never understand the true value of the dragon-slaying form. Thinking of this, the force behind the protagonist's swings gradually became more and more frenzied. But in the next second, his sword was blocked by the imperial uncle. Your movements are too clumsy. Have you already forgotten what I just demonstrated? Relax your body and use your abdomen to generate force. And your legs too. You have to transmit the power in your body correctly before your sword can be swung correctly. As the imperial uncle's words fell, the protagonist straightened his body with determination written all over his face. Even if right now, I am only a weak shell clumsily imitating the dragon-slaying form, I will still make everyone understand. The dragon-slaying form is not old trash that should be thrown away. The training progressed day by day like this, and soon a week had passed. Today, the pop-up suddenly notified him. The protagonist had successfully changed his physique, from morbid obesity to ordinary obesity, and through high-intensity training had gradually adapted to his body. The trait clumsy had disappeared, and the effects of subsequent training would increase significantly. Soon, another month passed. Today, the pop-up suddenly notified him. The magic perception disorder had disappeared, and the trait magic perception had been generated. The protagonist immediately felt his body become lighter. His sword swings more natural each time, and his power stronger, steadier, and more complete. The protagonist was instantly overjoyed, but in the next second, the wooden sword in his hand snapped with a crack. At some unknown point, the imperial uncle had already appeared behind him and cut through the wooden sword in his hand with a single strike. Then motioned for him to look ahead, only to see that the wooden stake in front had somehow been split by lightning, with tiny arcs of electricity still flickering along the break. Are you insane? You dare train in weather like this? If what you were holding just now hadn't been a wooden sword, you'd already be roasted. But the protagonist could not hear clearly what the imperial uncle was saying at all, and in the next moment, his vision went black and he fainted on the spot. At this moment, the pop-up displayed, the highly focused state had been lifted, and the trait high concentration had been generated, usable to an extremely limited extent. Not long after, the unconscious protagonist finally woke up, and he had not expected that he would actually practice swordsmanship until he lost consciousness. This body's foundation is far too poor. Back when I was a sword, I guided countless heroes and achieved so many victories. And in the end, I even became one of the founders of this kingdom. But in the eyes of outsiders, I was always just an outsider. So I became addicted to that state. The feeling of gathering all effort and sweat into my own hands. But if this keeps going, this body is not far from collapse. It has already been more than a month since the heart of magic condensed, and I have accumulated enough magic power. Isn't it about time to restore balance between body and mind and let the heart of magic enter its next stage? Thinking of this, the protagonist closed his eyes and entered inner observation. At that moment, a pop-up reminded him, you have gathered magic power to a certain level. Your body can now endure more magic power, and your heart of magic has expanded. Due to the expansion of the heart of magic, your bodily structure has undergone a certain change. At the same time the pop-up disappeared, the protagonist immediately felt the magic power within him become denser and smoother. It had actually been completed that easily. Then he picked up the iron sword beside him. The moment he gripped the sword, a spiritual aura wrapped around the blade. The protagonist's eyes lit up. With this, basic swordsmanship won't be difficult for me anymore. Very soon, the protagonist arrived at the training ground, ready to test his new ability. But the imperial uncle stopped him with a sigh. The protagonist truly could not understand it. You sigh when I practice badly, fine, but I haven't even started yet, so what are you sighing for? The imperial uncle explained, recently the kingdom has been full of rumors about your bet. The odds on you winning have already reached 10,000 to 1. Find an opponent and end this farce quickly. The protagonist said that he had already decided who his opponent would be. And right now it's still hard for me to find a two-chain knight head-on. So I want to fight a few one-chain opponents first. Is that okay? The imperial uncle answered very directly. Do as you like. At those words, the protagonist immediately looked at the guard Carl and asked whether the list was ready. Carl nodded. I prepared it as you requested. These are all the people who sent you fencing challenges. Your Highness intends to duel them in the form of practice matches, correct? But these people harbor a great deal of resentment toward your Highness, and I worry they may strike viciously. But the protagonist smiled and told him not to worry. I've already thought of a way. After saying that, he looked at the imperial uncle again. You heard that too, uncle. Then will you act as the referee? That's not an excessive request. You'll help me with this, right, uncle? A few more days passed, and the day of the first duel finally arrived. The first duelist was Tyler of House Tileham. At that moment, he stood outside the palace where the protagonist lived, his eyes full of hostility. This is one of the few chances to beat up that bastard legally. This time, I will definitely avenge the humiliation the eldest prince brought upon my family years ago. Very soon, Tyler entered the training ground filled with anger. My respects to your Highness, the eldest prince. I am Tyler, second son of House Tileham. I am a one-chain apprentice knight and practice the swordsmanship of the Tileham family. The protagonist thought to himself, it's not even a formal duel, so is there really any need to be this stiff and ceremonial? Then he looked at Carl and quietly asked whether this person was really a knight, since he looked far too weak. The moment Tyler heard those words, he flew into a rage. Just like a few years ago, this prince was still rude and arrogant. At that moment, the imperial uncle also arrived in motion for Tyler to put away his sword first. I understand how you feel, but the duel has not begun yet. Tyler had not expected to see the idol he had always admired here, and his face instantly flushed red. It is the greatest honor of my life to meet you. The protagonist's expression immediately darkened. He didn't get this excited greeting me. If outsiders saw this, they'd think you were the prince, uncle. The imperial uncle replied blandly, that's because you insisted on being a bastard before. After saying that, he signaled for both of them to take their positions, and the air instantly tightened with tension. At the imperial uncle's command, magic power surged up inside Tyler at once, and he charged at the protagonist with sword in hand. At the moment he drew close, he suddenly leaped up and brought his sword down in a heavy slash. The protagonist remained calm, condensed his magic power, and casually blocked Tyler's strike. Tyler was shocked on the spot. The other party had condensed not a chain of magic, but a heart of magic. But how could a heart of magic possibly block an attack from a chain of magic? The protagonist said bluntly, maybe it's because you're too weak. As soon as the words fell, the sword in the protagonist's hand was immediately wrapped in vigorous spiritual aura, and the blade emitted a low humming resonance. The surrounding guards watching the battle changed expression instantly, because the protagonist had used sword resonance, something only veteran knights could master. Naturally, Tyler was the most shocked of all. Why can some little prince use sword resonance when even I can't? As he shouted that it was impossible, he frantically accelerated his offensive. But no matter how hard he pressed, all of it was steadily received by the protagonist. The longer Tyler fought, the more anxious he became, to the point of nearly losing control. And the protagonist was not having an easy time either. The magic power in his body was already nearing the edge of flowing backward. The protagonist stared at Tyler and spoke. You're the second son of House Tileham, right? Can you calm down for a while first? Just for a while. After saying that, the Protagonist closed his eyes, and his consciousness sank deep into his soul. A phantom of a giant dragon slowly emerged. When the Protagonist touched that shadow, the pop-up displayed, the sleeping dragon slaying will is about to awaken. The Dragon Slayer's heart has been activated, and the energy of the Dragon Slayer's heart has successfully fused with the Dragon Slaying sword. The sleeping Dragon Slaying will has awakened. In an instant, terrifying pressure enveloped the entire training ground. Tyler could not understand it. The other party had merely closed and reopened his eyes, yet his entire presence had completely changed. This did not feel like fighting a person at all. It could not even be called a battle, but rather like throwing a tiny creature in front of an apex predator. Even the Imperial Uncle could not understand it. Why had his aura suddenly become so dangerous, even sinister? How could Tyler possibly block this strike? Then the Imperial Uncle remembered what the Protagonist had told him before. In the next moment, the Imperial Uncle moved, and in an instant rushed in front of the Protagonist. Then with a single blow, he sent the Protagonist flying on the spot. But in the next second, the guards raised their swords to the Imperial Uncle's neck. Stand down, Count Balakard. Do you know what you're doing? By law, you could be charged with regicide. At that moment, the Protagonist, having regained consciousness, raised his hand and signaled the guards to lower their swords. It was I who told him to stop me. But before he could finish speaking, the Protagonist fainted once again. And not long after, the unconscious Protagonist finally woke up. He first confirmed that the heart of magic was still there, and only then let out a long breath of relief. I thought that blow would directly shatter my heart of magic. The Imperial Uncle's strength truly is terrifying. But fortunately, it's all over now. At that moment, the Imperial Uncle also walked in. With a scrutinizing look, he directly asked the Protagonist what exactly he had done at that time. Why did an evil aura suddenly surge out of you at that moment? And that sword technique you used, I never taught you anything like that. The Protagonist explained that he had merely been true to the essence of the sword. The Imperial Uncle sneered. Cut the act. You've never even seen real battle. So what right do you have to talk about the essence of the sword? And the killing intent that covered your whole body at the time? Do you think the essence of the sword is killing intent? At this point, the Imperial Uncle sighed helplessly. Yet those words also happened to describe reality. Instead, the Protagonist was surprised and asked, now that I didn't expect. I thought you were going to lecture me, saying something like a sword is simply a sword itself, and then go on and on for ages. Hearing this teasing remark, the Imperial Uncle smiled and said that he was a soldier, not a knight. I walk the path of victory, not the knightly path of justice. But your sword is still too much. The killing intent is too heavy. You'll stop being able to distinguish friend from foe. So you've come to correct me, right? The Imperial Uncle nodded. From now on, I'll keep a close eye on you. If you've recovered, then continue training. Very soon, another 3 days passed. These 3 days, everyone has worked hard. Tyler had no idea what he was talking about. After all, during those 3 days, he had been forcibly enduring that out-of-control killing intent while blocking, and he had indeed nearly been tortured mad. At that moment, the Protagonist twisted the knife further. Unfortunately, you didn't win against me even once. If you had beaten me at least once, maybe you'd feel a little better. Too bad, you couldn't do it. After saying that, the Protagonist called over the maid who had been waiting nearby. Tyler looked at the box being carried over and frowned, asking what it was. The Protagonist explained, this is compensation for you. I heard that in the past I did many excessive things to you. I don't know whether this can make up for it, but please take these to Baron Tileham. After saying that, the Protagonist handed Tyler the box filled with gold, silver, and jewels. Why are you still not leaving? Do you want to stay here for dinner? And so, the training between the Protagonist and Tyler came to an end just like that. As soon as the training ended, a whole new wave of rumors immediately appeared throughout the kingdom. Many people ran to ask the person involved about the details of the duel, but Tyler only said that he had no comment. In the next moment, they thought they had figured it out on their own. The royal family must have paid hush money. Naturally, these rumors also reached the Protagonist's ears, and he was so annoyed he laughed. This wild imagination was simply ridiculous. Couldn't it just be that he lost to me and felt too embarrassed to talk about it? Don't these nobles have anything better to do all day than spread rumors and gossip? After hearing that, the Imperial Uncle felt that he had no room to talk about others. The Protagonist was instantly speechless. Can you stop dredging up all those old accounts already? As he spoke, the Protagonist turned his gaze toward the next sparring partner. After you leave, can you spread the result of the duel? After receiving a satisfactory answer, the Protagonist thought that this time the rumors should finally die down. But unexpectedly, new rumors emerged instead. Today a maid came to report, Your Highness, they're saying outside, that you really threatened Kate? The Protagonist's eyelids twitched when he heard this. He simply forced his anger into training and went through a fierce round of sword practice. After finishing one set, he asked Carl how many duel opponents were left, and Carl said that the one arriving today would be the last. The last one is still an apprentice knight? I've already got nothing left to learn from them. Carl said that the one coming today was not an ordinary person, but a true knight. She was not satisfied with merely studying her family swordsmanship and had directly joined the Knight Order. She was a recognized genius. The protagonist's eyes lit up at once. A genius knight of the Iron Lion Order? Soon, Alvin arrived at the scene. The guards recognized her at a glance. She was that genius of the Iron Lion Order, because the rumors about her had already spread throughout the kingdom. The flower on the cliff, the thorned rose, the woman who shattered every man's heart. One guard muttered quietly, in a way, the eldest prince was pretty impressive to actually get such a great beauty to spar with him. But if the prince were publicly humiliated by her, wouldn't that be even more laughable? The guard beside him immediately refuted him. Your thinking is too narrow. Every knight in the Iron Lion Order is a genius among geniuses. Although Alvin was still only an apprentice knight, that was merely because she had joined the order not long ago. Her talent had long been recognized by everyone, and she had even been internally designated by the higher-ups as a formal member. What puzzled the protagonist was, why would someone of this level apply to fence with him? Carl explained vaguely. There had probably been some misunderstanding before. The moment he heard that, the protagonist immediately understood. Most likely the previous owner had caused trouble again. But what exactly had he done? Carl refused to say. The protagonist had no choice but to look at the maid beside him. You tell me, what exactly did I do? The maid let out a helpless sigh. Your Highness, you once harassed Sir Alvin at a banquet. You demanded that she become your personal maid. After she refused, you publicly insulted her and called her an ugly thing. The moment those words came out, the protagonist was completely stunned. That lunatic, how could he have matured so badly so early? Very soon, Alvin entered the training ground. The protagonist truly could not understand just how twisted the original owner had been to look at her and still call her ugly. At that moment, Alvin gave a slight bow. It has indeed been a long time, Your Highness. You haven't changed at all. The protagonist immediately denied it, saying that he had actually changed a lot. Why don't you take a closer look? The moment the protagonist finished speaking, Alvin actually began examining him seriously. Just then, the Imperial Uncle also arrived. Upon seeing the Imperial Uncle appear, Alvin immediately stepped forward to introduce herself. I am Alvin Kogain of the Iron Lion Order, and I offer my highest respect to Count Balakard. The Imperial Uncle nodded in satisfaction. Be careful later. The prince swings a sword like a mad dog. Enough idle talk. He then signaled for the two of them to take their positions. As soon as the Imperial Uncle's words fell, Alvin drew her sword first, and then advanced in a straight line, pressing directly toward the protagonist. At first, the protagonist did not think much of it, only feeling that her movements were indeed beautiful. But in the next second, Alvin's strike shook his internal organs numb, and the magic power inside his body even began to flow backward. No matter how he thought about it, the protagonist could not understand. It was one thing for this woman to be absurdly beautiful, but why was her strength also this outrageous? If this kept up, he would undoubtedly lose. He immediately activated the Dragon Slayer's heart, and his presence instantly reversed. Alvin sharply sensed that something was wrong, and immediately pulled back to widen the distance. She could not understand what had happened to him. His aura had changed, and even the sword in his hand seemed to have become a different sword. Yet it was clearly still the same one. At that moment, the protagonist spoke. Though you're both single chain, you're far stronger than the others. After saying that, the protagonist activated the authority of a sword attendant, Judgment. In the next moment, Alvin's information appeared. Aptitude, Swordsmanship A, Archery B, Combat Technique B, Magic Perception B. Traits, Swordsmanship Genius, Competitive Spirit, Peerless Beauty, Tough Exterior with a Tender Heart, Pure-Hearted. The protagonist was shaken. She actually had the trait Swordsmanship Genius. At that moment, Alvin took up her opening stance once more. The two of them quickly clashed again, their sword flashes entangling. This battle continued from noon until dusk, and even after both were utterly exhausted, no winner had emerged. The Imperial Uncle stepped forward and signaled that this was enough for today. We'll continue tomorrow. The protagonist clicked his tongue in displeasure. I was just about to finish it. I hadn't even used my trump card yet. Alvin also responded coldly. I was also just about to use my trump card. So you still want to continue? Alvin refused to back down. As long as you want to, I'll accompany you to the end. With a loud shout, the Imperial Uncle forcibly suppressed the argument between the two, then signaled for the physician, who had long been waiting behind him, to step forward for treatment. Allow this old servant to treat you properly, Your Highness. There is an abrasion here, and a bruise here as well. While receiving treatment, the protagonist glanced sideways at Alvin. And at that exact moment, Alvin was also secretly glancing at the Protagones out of the corner of her eye, and their gazes collided instantly. Both the Protagones and Alvin thought they had been caught peeking. In the next second, they both turned their faces away at the same time, pretending that nothing had happened. And so the second day arrived, yet the two still could not determine a winner. Very soon, time came to the third day. Even the guards had not expected the two of them to fight to this extent. Logically, this duel should have had no suspense at all and should already have become completely one-sided. Although we've all seen the eldest prince's strength, I've also heard quite a few rumors about Alvin. At that moment, the Protagones said that he had something to say before the match began. Alvin thought he was going to apologize for what he had done to her before, and immediately responded coldly, he would not accept it. The Protagones replied directly, you're overthinking it. I just thought, since we're fighting this hard, wouldn't it be better to add a prize? Whoever loses must fulfill one wish of the winner. The moment these words came out, all the guards were shaken. Could it be that the eldest prince still had not given up on Sir Alvin? Even Alvin was stunned. The Protagones knew from their expressions that they had misunderstood at once, and immediately added, what I mean is, if the winner tells you to apologize, then you apologize. If the winner tells you to kneel, then you kneel. After saying that, he stared at Alvin. Well, Alvin's heart skipped a beat. If I win, wouldn't that mean I can make him kneel and apologize? She immediately composed herself and said, I serve the royal family and am a member of the Iron Lion Order. Though I am only an apprentice for now, I still cannot be so disrespectful to your highness. But if your highness permits. At the imperial uncle's command, the two officially began the match. In the next moment, sword light intertwined as the two collided instantly. But very quickly, Alvin sensed that something was wrong. His presence had grown stronger, and his sword had become faster and fiercer. Could it be that he had been hiding his true strength the whole time? She immediately widened the distance, wanting to reset the rhythm. But right after that, her pupils contracted. The Protagones had rushed in front of her almost like teleportation. In the next second, the sword in her hand was cut in two. Though they had been evenly matched for the previous 2 days, this time it was over almost in an instant. Alvin could not believe it. The guards were also all stunned speechless. The most shocked of all was actually the imperial uncle. The burst of speed the Protagones had just shown was beyond even many second-ranked knights. Very soon, the Protagones walked up to Alvin. It seems this round is my victory. Alvin Cogain, from now on, you are mine. The guards beside them felt their scalps go numb upon hearing this. So the eldest prince truly was still lustful at heart? Even his personal guard Carl began to wonder whether he had misjudged him. When he had first been assigned to the eldest prince, he had been uneasy because of the rumors. But during this period, the eldest prince had not flown into a rage at every turn the way the rumor said. He was arrogant, yes, but being born royal, having some temper was not exactly strange. He trained fiercely and desperately, pushing himself close to fainting again and again. But why was he now saying something that disgraced the royal family and trampled on the spirit of knighthood? Hearing those words, Alvin was so furious that she laughed instead. So this is what your highness wanted? The Protagones nodded without hesitation. Yes, although right now you can't even defeat a rogue prince like me. That doesn't matter. I want the potential and future of the knight named Alvin Cogain. I need a knight who will truly follow me. Not a knight who only obeys the king's orders to protect me, but a knight who belongs only to me, Adrian. In my eyes, you have talent and swordsmanship. So, are you willing to become a knight who belongs only to me, Adrian? Alvin froze. Since childhood, her dream had been to become a knight, and she had indeed come this far. But because of her appearance, no matter where she went, no one treated her as a real knight. In order to be acknowledged, she could only put in more effort than everyone else. Even after defeating all the apprentice knights, she still could not shake off the label of pretty ornament, and could never cross that final threshold. But the man before her seemed different. He says what he wants is my potential and future as a knight, but is that really his true intention? Thinking of this, Alvin took a deep breath. I can agree to you, but you must also agree to one thing. Do not see me as a woman. See me as a knight. If you can do that, then I will obey all of your arrangements. The Protagones nodded without hesitation. That won't be difficult for me. As soon as the Protagones finished speaking, Alvin knelt on one knee. I am Alvin, eldest daughter of the Cogain family. I swear loyalty to Prince Adrian and shall devote my sword and the rest of my life to your highness. The Protagones nodded in satisfaction. Then he placed the sword on Alvin's shoulder. I am Adrian, rightful heir of the Leon Burke family. In the name of Adrian, I now dub you a knight. And just like that, the Protagones gained the first true knight who belonged to him alone. The very next day, this news spread through every street and alley of the kingdom. The people of the Iron Lion Order could not understand it at all. Why would Alvin swear loyalty to a rogue like the eldest prince? Is there something wrong behind this? What do you think? Could there be some unspeakable relationship between her and the prince? Maybe the eldest prince couldn't openly take her in, so he used a knight's oath as a cover? I think that's possible. After all, this was strange from the very beginning. She had no reason to participate in that rogue suspicious duel at all. And so, the absurd rumor spread just like that. The Protagones felt his blood pressure shoot up from hearing it. The people spreading this must be insane. Did they really have nothing better to do? Do I really look like that kind of scheming villain full of bad intentions? That question made Carl fall silent, thinking it would be safer not to respond. But then he thought of something and stopped the Protagones, who was still fuming. I've been thinking for a long time about what your highness said that day. The Protagones was baffled. Which day? Which sentence? Carl said it was what he said on the day of the duel. So which sentence exactly? The Protagones thought for a moment, then suddenly understood. That sentence may have made you uncomfortable, but what I said was the truth. If the royal family ordered you to go somewhere else, would you refuse? Then he added, if you're willing, you can swear loyalty to me as well. If I said I was willing to swear loyalty, would you accept? The Protagones shook his head without hesitation. Carl did not understand. Why reject him so directly? The Protagones explained calmly, because training you would be too boring. At that moment, a maid delivered a letter from outside the door. The king actually lifted my confinement this quickly. Before, he looked as if he was going to lock me in the crown prince's palace until I died. I truly cannot understand what is going on in the king's head. Carl asked in return, wasn't it a good thing to be able to go out and walk around? The Protagones sighed helplessly. Even if I leave the crown prince's palace, I have nowhere to go. I know no one well, and there's no one I can invite out. At that moment, the maid sorting the letters suddenly gave a start. The Protagones asked what was wrong, and the maid said she had seen an invitation sent by Alfie. The Protagones was even more puzzled. Does that invitation eat people or something? Why are you so shocked? And why would Alfie send one to me? Am I close with him? The maid said, your highness should read it yourself. Special Young Noble Social Club? That name doesn't sound like a decent place at all. The maid explained, this was a social gathering your highness used to attend. The Protagones was instantly shocked. I used to be a member of a weird place like this? The maid nodded without hesitation. Whenever your highness had free time, he would go there and lose himself in drink and debauchery. After hearing that, the Protagones only wanted to sigh. Training already keeps me busy enough. I'm not going to attend some weird gathering like that. But just after saying that, the Protagones suddenly froze. Because the letter mentioned the Eli family. The Protagones immediately became interested. Uncle said that was the family that insisted on continuing to use the Heart of Magic, though it declined 100 years ago. But perhaps I should go and learn more about it. Thinking of this, the Protagones turned and told the maid that he would attend the banquet. The maid nodded. I will prepare everything your highness needs. In the blink of an eye, 4 months passed. Throughout this time, he had grit his teeth and persisted, and his obese physique had completely disappeared. Even the chief royal tailor standing beside him could not help but praise him. The eldest prince's perseverance was terrifying. Your highness's measurements are now less than half what they used to be. This round of praise put the Protagones in an excellent mood. From now on, all my formal wear will be entrusted to you. A few days later, the Protagones finally set out for that bizarre social club. The Protagones could not understand it. He was only going out for a bit of fun. So was there really any need to make such a grand show of it? As if they were afraid the entire royal capital would not know that that bastard was leaving the palace. Thinking of this, the Protagones let his gaze settle on the maid in front of him. After several months of training, his senses had become extraordinarily sharp. He frowned and asked how the scar on the maid's shoulder had gotten there. Only after asking did he learn. It was the previous owner again. The Protagones truly could not understand how the previous owner had managed to live this long after doing so many horrible things even to those around him. And this maid had clearly been serving him for a long time, yet he did not even know her name. Thinking of this, the Protagones asked her what she was called. The maid answered softly, I am Adelia of the Bavaria family. The moment he heard that name, the Protagones was shaken on the spot. Instantly, the image of a woman full of foul language, who punched her way through battlefields with her fists, burst into the Protagones' mind. Though a long time had passed, merely thinking of her still made a chill run down his spine. But the problem was, she had clearly been that powerful. So why were there barely any records of her descendants in the nobles' registry? The Protagones' instincts told him that there was definitely something seriously wrong here. At that moment, Carl outside the carriage reminded him that they had arrived, and the Protagones could not help but mutter, your timing is really something. Carl looked completely confused, unable to understand what he had done wrong. The Protagones could only reply blandly that ignorance was a kind of blessing. After saying that, he looked again at Adelia behind him. Once I'm done, let's have a proper talk. Adelia was even more puzzled, thinking what there was for her and His Highness to talk about. Carl was also stunned, wondering what had happened between those two in the carriage, his mind full of question marks. At that moment, a man walked up to the Protagones. Bernardo of the Eli family greets Prince Adrian. It's only been a few months, yet your highness has slimmed down this much. You must have suffered quite a bit. The Protagones had not expected that this guy, who looked like a street thug, would actually be a descendant of the Eli family. Could it be that the previous owner was basically a thug too, and that's why birds of a feather flock together? Right after that, an even bolder idea took shape in the Protagones' mind. When Bernardo saw the Protagones' expression suddenly change, he thought he was feeling unwell. The Protagones shook his head faintly. I just feel that I came to the right place. Today is definitely going to be very interesting. Bernardo was full of question marks. When had that straightforward eldest prince started speaking like this? Soon, the two entered the banquet hall. The more Bernardo looked, the more he felt that something was wrong with the Protagones today. In the past, he would get dead drunk the moment he arrived, but now he simply sat there upright, and even his aura seemed like that of a different person. At that moment, a drunken man staggered up to the Protagones. I heard your highness tame that female knight, the flower of the Iron Lion. She already looks beautiful in armor. I really can't imagine how charming she'd be without it. She must taste quite nice, right? If I'd known she was so easy to take, I'd have made my move first. After hearing this, the Protagones instead asked him whether he had any other brothers or sisters. Although the man did not understand why the Protagones was asking that, he still said that he had a younger brother. The moment those words fell, the Protagones punched him in the face. The blow left the man stunned. Why did your highness hit me? Aren't we good brothers? The Protagones smiled. By good brothers, do you mean treating me like an idiot? I can tolerate you taking me for an idiot, but I can't tolerate you handling me as though I were one. The moment he said this, everyone in the hall was stunned. What was wrong with the eldest prince today? Had he gotten drunk after only 2 drinks? Otherwise, how could he say something like this? In the next second, the man took another hit to the face from the Protagones' uppercut and was sent flying more than 10 meters on the spot. The noble youths nearby were completely dumbfounded and simply could not understand what madness had seized the eldest prince today. Didn't I say earlier? Today is going to be very interesting. No one could figure out what he intended to do, and the entire hall instantly became frighteningly silent, everyone terrified that they would be the next to go down. Only then did the Protagones speak. Since you still have a younger brother, your family's bloodline won't be cut off. After saying that, he lifted his foot and stomped viciously down on the man's crotch. The hall, which had been deathly silent a moment before, was instantly torn apart by a blood-curdling scream. Every male noble present felt a simultaneous chill, as if that kick had landed on them. Then the Protagones' voice rang out again. From now on, your younger brother is your family's heir. After saying that, the Protagones shifted his gaze to Bernardo at the side. One look from him made Bernardo's legs go weak, terrified that he would be next. The Protagones said coldly that he was not some kind of devil. Go out and summon my royal knights. Bernardo felt as if he had gotten his life back and immediately replied, I'll go at once. The moment he left, the hall fell silent again, and even breathing became cautious, for fear of drawing attention. At that point, the Protagones continued to issue orders. All the women in the hall, leave. One man tried to slip out in the chaos, only to hear the Protagones say coldly, I only permitted the women to leave. Do you want to become a woman too? The image from moments earlier flashed through the man's mind at once, and he immediately froze in place. The Protagones swept his gaze over the entire hall. Do you know why I'm doing this? From the moment I came in, not one of you knelt before me, a prince. Disrespecting me would have been one thing, but you even dared insult my knight to my face. In a situation like this, what crime should I use to deal with you? At that moment, Karl also arrived at the scene and calmly added the finishing blow. They could be charged with insulting the royal family. Besides that, they were also challenging royal authority and could therefore be tried for treason. The moment these words were spoken, all the noble youths in the hall turned deathly pale. None of them had expected the accusation to become this serious. Then Karl's voice rang out, Please give the order, your highness. A few days later, when the king learned of this, his face was full of disbelief. Insulting the royal family? Treason? You actually used reasons like that to arrest 14 young nobles. Are you trying to force the nobility to completely turn against the royal family? The Protagones explained calmly, in their own families, they were stains to begin with. I am clearing away those stains for their families. They don't even have time to thank me yet. As long as I write a letter to their brothers or sisters and let them inherit the family, do you think those nobles will still hate me? For a moment, the king was left speechless by the question. After a long silence, he could only tell the Protagones to leave at once. After leaving, the Protagones went straight to Adelia. When Adelia saw the smile on the Protagones' face, her heart instantly sank. I'm probably in for terrible luck. The Protagones had not expected that even though he was smiling so kindly, she would still be this frightened. It seemed the previous owner really had tormented her badly. That bastard truly deserved to die. And the reason the Protagones had come to find Adelia was precisely because of what happened in the carriage. She was clearly that person's descendant, yet she knew nothing about that person's affairs, as if someone had forcibly erased her existence and glory without leaving a trace. Thinking of this, the protagonist activated his judgment skill. In the next instant, Adelia's personal information appeared directly before the protagonist's eyes. After reading it, the protagonist was shaken to the core. It was not surprising that she had S-rank swordsmanship talent. After all, she was the descendant of that war maniac, but she had no trait capable of suppressing her madness. Could that kind of madness really be allowed to descend upon the world? At that thought, the protagonist felt only a headache coming on. But no matter what, he had to try. S-rank talent was far too rare. And he could also make use of her trait, a slave mentality. People with this trait feel intense joy from the bottom of their hearts at the act of serving a master. Thinking of this, the protagonist directly asked Adelia whether she was willing to swear loyalty to him. Adelia was stunned on the spot and could not make sense of it no matter how she thought about it. Why was His Highness suddenly saying this? Was being a personal maid not enough? Did he even want her to warm his bed? The protagonist replied blandly, "You're overthinking it. I only want you to become a knight." Adelia instantly panicked. "Such grace is not something a lowly person like me can bear. I will make your family prosper again. In return, you must swear loyalty to me and serve me as one would serve a master." Adelia had never expected that such a good thing would really fall from the sky and land squarely on her head. But she still asked uneasily whether the protagonist was telling the truth. "As long as I swear loyalty to you, you will make my family prosper? If you are willing, I can even summon all of them to the royal capital, so you can see them whenever you want." And just like that, the protagonist took in his second knight. "I am Adelia, eldest daughter of the Bavalen family, and at this moment I swear loyalty to Prince Adrian. I will take you as my master and devote my life to you." Unexpectedly, he had received a subordinate with S-rank talent this easily. "From now on, you are to obey my orders unconditionally." As he said this, the protagonist placed his hand on Adelia's head. As he kept touching it, the protagonist suddenly sensed that something was off. Why was she blushing? A few days later, the protagonist heard a pile of absurd rumors. Some said the flower of the Iron Lion had sworn loyalty to him because she had been coerced by him, and some said he had beaten those young nobles in order to seize their beautiful concubines. Some even said that turning a maid who had never touched a sword into his personal knight was not forming a knight order at all, but building a harem under the name of a knight order. The protagonist completely could not understand what had happened to this world. He had merely taken in one knight, yet in other people's eyes it seemed to have changed in nature. The rumors outside were one thing, but even the king thought he had degenerated. His royal uncle also thought he might have given up. Even that Narcissus third prince dared to come and lecture him. The protagonist did not understand. He had only done a few things, so why had the rumors exploded like this? Could there be a mole by his side? At that moment, a maid came to report that the queen was already on her way. It seemed the queen had also come to educate him. But the queen's very first sentence upon entering was, "It seems my son has finally reached that age as well. In that case, my task as a mother is very clear. Leave everything to your mother without worry. I will definitely find you a suitable partner." After saying that, the queen hurried away, leaving the protagonist completely numb. Life just destroy itself. Soon, the protagonist summoned Adelia and prepared to awaken her magic. Adelia could hardly believe it. She could actually possess magic as well. In the next moment, magical light glowed around the protagonist, little by little drawing out the dormant magic within Adelia. Though this world has forgotten the sword marquis, I still remember everything about her. The road she walked, every streak of sword light her fingertips once cast. At this moment, the pulsing of this golden magic was like her heart beating once more. The whole process did not last long before it ended. Adelia had not expected awakening magic to be this simple, and her magic also seemed to be different from other people's. The protagonist explained, "People have different constitutions. Next, I will teach you the method of forging a heart of magic. Practice it more on your own whenever you have time." But before the protagonist could finish speaking, he collapsed headfirst to the ground. He had not expected that merely forging a heart of magic for someone else would almost drain him dry. This pitiful body really could not hold on for even a second. Thinking of this, the protagonist forced himself to stand and gestured for Adelia to withdraw. But Adelia asked in confusion, why was His Highness doing so much for her? Looking at her, the protagonist gave only one reply, "Because you are mine." Adelia immediately lowered her head. "I will use the rest of my life to serve you with loyalty." The protagonist continued to press forward. "Then call me master, so I can hear it." Unexpectedly, Adelia did not hesitate in the slightest and called him that directly. Cold sweat instantly rolled down the protagonist's forehead, releasing something this demonic. Was it really going to be okay? A few days later, Carl reported to the protagonist the news he had heard recently. As a witness to the recent disturbance, Bernardo had been detained by the royal guard. and it seemed that no one was allowed to see him before the trial began. The Protagones only felt that these people were making a fuss over nothing. For something this minor, was there really any need to convene a tribunal? Sure enough, the nobles of this country were truly so idle they had gone mad. As he spoke, the Protagones looked at Adelia beside him and asked how her Heart of Magic training was going. Adelia answered that her Heart of Magic had already completely stabilized. After hearing that, the Protagones nodded in satisfaction. From today on, you will train with me. Go change your clothes first, then come find me at the training ground. Also, stop wiping vases from now on. You are a knight now, what you should be wiping is your sword. Soon, the Protagones arrived at the training ground. Not long after, his royal uncle also arrived. Frowning, he asked the Protagones what he was doing now. What was the point of training this girl? The Protagones replied calmly, she is already my knight. Training my own knight is perfectly normal. His royal uncle flew into a rage on the spot. Is the title of knight something just anyone can have? Fooling around in private is one thing, but you actually dared bring her to the training ground. The Protagones only felt that his royal uncle was becoming more and more annoying. At that moment, Adelia, having finished her running, came up to the two of them, and reported, I have already run 10 laps. The moment she finished speaking, the Protagones handed her a wooden sword. Now, the training officially begins. After saying that, the Protagones demonstrated once in front of Adelia. When the demonstration ended, he signaled for Adelia to try once. Adelia instinctively felt that someone like her definitely could not do it. But every single sword-swinging posture of the Protagones was clearly etched in her mind. In the next second, she raised the sword and swung it. His royal uncle was directly stunned. Was this really something a maid who had never held a sword could do? The Protagones had not expected it either. She had learned it convincingly after seeing it just once. Being stared at by the two of them made Adelia uneasy, and she thought her movements were not standard enough. When the Protagones heard those words, no matter how he listened, they sounded like bragging. His royal uncle had also not expected that she would have this kind of talent. The Protagones immediately made things clear, as if declaring ownership. She is mine, not someone you can covet. His royal uncle sneered. You brat really are a little interesting. But after holding a sword for just a few months, you think you can control her? As the words fell, he released an oppressive pressure powerful enough to crush people. In an instant, the Protagones also activated the Heart of Magic within his body and forcefully pushed back against it. If even I cannot control her, then no one in this world can. I am not the useless prince I used to be. I once slew a troll from thirst, only to drink its marrow and quench it. When a dragon coiled around a mountain and blocked my path, I cut it down with a single stroke. I am the first divine sword, Gruhan. Whoever stands in my way will meet no good end. In the next moment, magic no weaker than his royal uncle's burst out from within the Protagones. His scarlet pupils locked onto his royal uncle. I'll say it one last time, she is mine. In an instant, on the training ground, the pressure surged toward the two of them like a tidal wave. What belongs to me? No one is taking it away. But the moment those words left his mouth, the Protagones suddenly realized that his perception of the outside world was rapidly receding, as though his body were sinking into the deep sea, with nothing left in his vision but darkness, and the only thing he could feel was the cold wrapping around his whole body. This feeling, it was the sensation he had only felt when he once existed as a sword. Could this be an ominous sign? A sign that this body is about to be completely devoured by Gruhan. At that moment, his royal uncle let out a furious shout and forcibly dragged the Protagones back from that abyss. Do you even know what you're doing right now? Even an ordinary knight can save dozens of lives on the battlefield, and if she were trained by my own hand, this child would definitely become the finest of knights in the future. On the battlefield, she might save thousands, or even tens of thousands, of soldiers. The Protagones had not expected it either, that the other party was trying to poach her on the spot for this very reason, as expected of the supreme commander of the northern border. But so what? His royal uncle could hardly believe it. But so what, you say? Even if she could save countless subjects under your command, you're still going to continue degenerating like this? As he spoke, he moved to go ask the king for her. At that moment, Adelia spoke up, my body and soul already belong to his highness. Even if I die, I will not go with you. His royal uncle's expression instantly turned into one of exasperation at wasted potential. It's one thing for him to be a rogue prince, but can you not tell what matters more? Does your excellency the royal uncle not understand human speech? And also, your excellency, has it been a long time since you last taught me anything? Or was your goal from the beginning merely to help me lose weight? If that is the case, then please leave early. And if you still want to enter my palace, from now on, stop interfering in any of my affairs. His royal uncle clicked his tongue in displeasure on the spot. Who cares about coming to your lousy palace anyway? Though he said that, the very next day he still stepped into the Protagones' palace. And when teaching Adelia at the side, he was even more meticulous than when he had taught the Protagones back then. Who would have thought that the supreme commander of the northern border had such an awkward side to him as well? Just then, bursts of sword hums suddenly rang out across the field. Beads of sweat as large as beans rolled down the protagonist's rough cheeks. He knew she was a swordsmanship genius, but he had not expected her to be this gifted. How long had it even been, and she had already touched the resonance of the sword. Even the protagonist was startled as he watched, but he still forced himself to say, although it's a little slower than I expected, you've done very well. Yet inwardly he stayed on guard. If this continues, she will surpass me very soon. At that moment, however, the royal uncle strode over to the two of them in a fury. He questioned the protagonist. Why teach Adelia a petty trick like the Heart of Magic, when she originally had a better path, potential beyond anything you could imagine, and now had been ruined by you? After hearing that, the protagonist's expression instantly darkened. He signaled for Carl behind him to escort the royal uncle out. The royal uncle snorted coldly and said there was no need to be so polite. He had legs of his own. Adelia also could not understand. How had the two of them suddenly started arguing? Could what I learned really be just a petty trick? Otherwise, why would the royal uncle say that? The protagonist explained, the Heart of Magic is not some petty trick. They think that only because the people of this country have forgotten it. If they had not forgotten, they would not have thrown it away like garbage. You will soon understand the power of the Heart of Magic. I believe that day is not far off. In the blink of an eye, the next day arrived. Today the royal uncle once again stood before the protagonist and issued him a fencing challenge. After the way you looked yesterday, I thought you'd never come here again. The royal uncle ignored the teasing outright and only said that he would use only the power of a single chain. As long as you can make me step back even half a pace, I will acknowledge you. Fine, but what do I get out of it? I can grant you one wish. If you win, even if you want the stars in the sky, I'll find a way to pluck them down for you. Since you're being so generous, then I'll accept this prize in advance. With that, the protagonist aimed at the royal uncle's neck and launched a direct thrust. But the royal uncle dodged it with ease. As soon as the first strike missed, the protagonist immediately followed with a second wave of attacks. But no matter how many times, the royal uncle remained as steady as if nailed to the ground, not retreating even half a step, casually neutralizing each move. So this is all you've got? If this is your full strength, I'd advise you to give up early. The protagonist only felt that the royal uncle's mouth was becoming more and more annoying, but he also had to admit, he really was strong. As expected of the supreme commander capable of guarding the northern border. With my current Heart of Magic, I am definitely not his match. Thinking this, the protagonist prepared to employ the art of talking his way through. Doesn't your excellency the royal uncle find it strange? 400 years ago, knights with hearts of magic achieved countless military feats. Yet now, they have abandoned this path of merit. Only because there appeared the magic chain, which in their eyes was a little stronger than the Heart of Magic. But is the magic chain really stronger? What is truly weak is not the Heart of Magic, but the person using it. And I said before as well, even among hearts of magic, there are class differences. Have you ever heard of the martial soul hymn? The royal uncle felt the protagonist was talking far too much. This was a dueling ground, not a place for discussing such things. If you still haven't caught your breath, I can wait a little longer. But the protagonist raised a hand to indicate there was no need. Since you also think the Heart of Magic is a low-grade technique only low-grade mercenaries learn, then I will prove it to you. As he spoke, the protagonist began to sing a clear and restrained ballad. The royal uncle could not understand it at all. How had this man started singing in the middle of talking? If he was sick, couldn't he go back to his room and have an episode by himself? But in the next second, his pupils contracted sharply. He saw richer magic than before winding around the protagonist. That was not an amount a single chain should possess. It even surpassed that of ordinary double-chain knights. Do you understand now? This is the power of the Heart of Magic, the power you all ignored. The royal uncle's heart jolted. He had not expected that the ballad long passed down in song could truly draw out such power. But no matter what you do, it is all futile struggle. The magic chain has absolute suppression over the Heart of Magic. You can never defeat an enemy who possesses the magic chain. Then I will show you right now, the true power of the Heart of Magic. As the words fell, the protagonist raised his sword and charged straight at the royal uncle. In the next moment, the two clashed head-on. Do you understand now? The stronger the magic chain, the stronger its suppression over the Heart of Magic. Even if I use only a single chain, it is enough to force the power in your Heart of Magic to flow backward. With that, the royal uncle struck heavily, knocking the protagonist back. But the protagonist laughed. To use this hymn to its utmost, he had gone through more than 100 confrontations back then. And he had made his Heart of Magic forcibly endure the power of the magic chain, more than 100 times. Through more than 100 clashes, my Heart of Magic has withstood 1,000 waves. Now I will tell you, what class differences within Hearts of Magic really mean. With that, the protagonist once again squeezed out all the strength in his body. and launched an even fiercer assault on the royal uncle. The royal uncle also felt the protagonist's strength rise yet another notch, but this should be the limit, right? The moment he thought that, he was shocked in the next second. This brat's power was actually still growing stronger, becoming more ferocious with every attack. If his initial outburst had already surpassed ordinary double-chain knights, then his power now had likely touched the threshold of 3 chains. How was that possible? You look very confused, Jiayu and you. Have you forgotten? I told you, even among hearts of magic, there are class differences. The same old saying, what is truly weak is not the heart of magic, but the person using it. Hearing that, the royal uncle flew into a rage. Just because you've gained a little power, is that the capital of your arrogance? With that, the royal uncle slashed down viciously with his sword. The protagonist was instantly blasted away by the shockwave raised by the sword force. Because of your arrogance, I have decided not to hold back any longer. This guy changed his face faster than turning the pages of a book. But in the end, trying to win this match with an ordinary grade him had been far too naive from the start. Thinking of this, the protagonist once again activated his verbal jutsu. Do you know? 400 years ago, all knights made one fatal mistake. In order to let their arts be perfectly passed down, they left no enemies behind that their descendants could fight. So everything was preserved intact, including that great martial soul him. But time also gradually eroded the greatness of those knights. People today think dragons exist only in legends, and are even less likely to know the stories of the ancient troll kings. Even if they happen to hear them, they will only treat them as childish nonsense. Of course, new hymns will be written, but at most they amount to the level of defeating 100 soldiers. Do you think that kind of win can stop a tidal wave? Those who use low-grade techniques like the magic chain will never reach the heights of ancient heroes. The royal uncle was utterly baffled. What was this guy talking about? Had he gotten drunk before the duel? At that moment, dark red magic suddenly wrapped itself around the protagonist. That magic moved and circled around him like living microorganisms. The protagonist's presence also rose sharply in an instant. Why am I telling you this? Because I want you to understand what a great thing it is that you have all thrown away. It does not matter if you do not understand now, because I will teach you personally. After saying that, the protagonist began chanting the dragon slaying him. It was so tough that no sword could cut through it, and so sharp that it could split dragon scales and drink hot blood. But after chanting only a few lines, the protagonist felt as if his body were about to shatter. In the next second, a warning window popped up before his eyes. The current body cannot control this hymn. Part of the hymn has been omitted, and only one section of the hymn may be used. When 1/16 of the hymn was completed, the protagonist's aura surged once more. And in the next instant, he charged straight toward the royal uncle. Unhurried, the royal uncle received the blow head-on. But the magic chain within his body suddenly became restless, as if it were about to be devoured by the other party's power. The royal uncle's heart sank sharply. If this continued, let alone winning easily, he might well be completely drained by this brat. Thinking of this, the royal uncle gritted his teeth, and directly used the power of 4 chains to blast the protagonist away in a single strike. But even though he had used the power of 4 chains, the sword in his hand was still cut in two by the protagonist. The protagonist only felt that this old man was too boring. He had said with his mouth that he would use only 1 chain, but the moment he got anxious he threw out all his trump cards. Still, the protagonist could not be bothered to argue over it. The protagonist braced himself and stood up. Do you understand now, Count Valbalicard? What is truly weak is not the heart of magic, but the person who possesses it. And just like that, the protagonist won his duel with the royal uncle. But in the next second, everything went black before his eyes and he lost consciousness completely, remaining unconscious for several days. This was the price this frail body had to pay for forcefully using the dragon slaying him, even though he had chanted only 1 section out of 1/16. Judging from the result, this gamble had been worth it. With this trump card, it should be enough to deal with that bastard, my third brother. At that moment, Adelia walked into the protagonist's room. Seeing that the protagonist had finally awakened, Adelia was so happy she was nearly in tears. The moment you fainted back then, the whole scene fell into chaos, and the royal uncle was almost scolded by the queen until he could not lift his head. The protagonist felt that the royal uncle had deserved that, who told him not to hold back at all. Adelia said the royal uncle had also left word. The moment His Highness woke up, she was to notify him. But the protagonist told Adelia to conceal the news of his recovery for now. The top priority was to repair as soon as possible the mental strength damaged by overusing the hymn. If he did not recover quickly enough, his current memories would twist together with his past memories. When that happened, getting memory confusion and turning into a madman would be the lighter outcome. If things went badly, he might directly become a drooling idiot with rolled back eyes. Just imagining that scene sent a chill through the protagonist. As he was thinking, his stomach began to growl. Soon, Adelia returned to the room carrying a meal. While eating, the Protagonist spoke with Adelia about her ancestor. Agnes was once a great swordswoman. Since you are her descendant, then you shall inherit the martial soul him she left behind. Adelia had not expected her own ancestor to be so great, but was she really worthy of inheriting it? The Protagonist nodded. You can, but you still have to become stronger than you are now before you are worthy of that him. First tell me, why do you wield the sword? After hearing that, Adelia became bashful, stammering for a long while without being able to give a reason. The Protagonist sighed helplessly. If you can't think of it now, then forget it. You can tell me later. But upon hearing that, Adelia stared straight at the Protagonist. I wield the sword only because I want to become your highness's blade. I am willing to live my whole life only for your highness. As her words fell, the Protagonist suddenly noticed that a layer of golden mist rose around Adelia. The mist slowly gathered and surged toward the space before the Protagonist. Immediately after, a pop-up informed him, obtained Adelia's hymn of submission. A new martial soul hymn has been created. Hymn of submission, ordinary rank. A new martial soul hymn has been created. Hymn of dominion, ordinary rank. The Protagonist froze on the spot. In the next second, the relevant information on the hymn of submission surfaced in his mind. Wasn't this basically binding both him and her together for life? Even more outrageous was this, that the descendant of that war maniac who fought while cursing had actually written a hymn of submission. For the first time in his hundreds of years of life, the Protagonist felt that this world had gone completely insane. But no matter what, he had indeed gained no small amount of help. Adelia's growth from here on would in turn make him stronger as well. Thinking of this, the Protagonist could not help but say thank you to Adelia, although even now he still did not know what exactly this hymn could be used for. A few more days passed, and the Protagonist estimated that the timing was about right, so he had Adelia spread the news that he had recovered. But at this very moment, he regretted it so much his intestines turned green. If he could do it over again, he would definitely lie in bed for a few more days. People who disliked this body were easy enough to deal with, but who could have guessed? The first one to come to his door would be the person who liked this body the most. At that thought, the Protagonist let out a heavy, helpless sigh. When the Queen heard him sigh, she thought he was thinking of the royal uncle, and so she comforted him. Your uncle did not mean it either. Even if you do feel resentment in your heart, please put it aside for now. After all, we are family. The Protagonist explained that he did not resent the royal uncle. How could you possibly not resent him? He treated you so roughly and kept nagging you. If you say you feel nothing, you must be trying to comfort me. The Protagonist felt even more helpless. Telling the truth was being treated as lying. Besides, that day I secretly planted an inner demon in him. He should be feeling even worse than I am now. If he can endure it, he will advance further. If he cannot, he can only become a cripple. Thinking of this, even the Protagonist felt like a villain. Just then, the Queen's voice sounded again. Actually, your uncle may be sharp-tongued, but he has a soft heart. He has spent his whole life with the sword, so he truly is not good at dealing with people. But I can say for certain, he genuinely wants what is best for you. The reason your confinement was ended was because he went to plead with His Majesty for you. But the moment your confinement ended, you immediately caused him trouble again. The Protagonist had not expected that behind his back, the royal uncle had done so much for him. If that was the case, then what he had done to him before really did make him look even more like a villain. But the question was, why was he treating him so well? Just then, the old scholar Nicolo walked into the Protagonist's room, and the Protagonist instantly felt awful all over. He had just sent off the Queen, and now here came an old scholar who wanted him to study hard and improve every day. He only wanted to be an idle prince. Why did he have to read? Why did he absolutely have to study? The old scholar said coldly that a person who did not study was no different from a pig in a sty. So you're saying I'm a pig? The Protagonist shot back. Don't judge me by appearances. In fact, I already know everything I need to know. I don't need to study. The old scholar nodded. If you don't want to study, that's fine. I have a way. Let's discuss a few questions now. If you can answer them, I will report it to the king. The Protagonist immediately became interested when he heard this. I hope you'll keep your word in a moment. But in the next second, the Protagonist's expression changed. Why are books nowadays so interesting? I love studying. The old scholar nodded in satisfaction and casually handed another book to the Protagonist. This book is very interesting, and very bold. It evaluates the relationship between ruler and subject as a kind of contract or exchange. The ruler gains military and economic support in return for protection of the people. The people seek the ruler's protection and political stability, repaying him with loyalty. The Protagonist instantly felt that this book suited his taste perfectly. Relationships should be about mutual giving and exchange. The old scholar also quietly changed his view. Rumors truly could not be trusted. This was no rogue eldest prince, but clearly a prince with astonishing promise. Soon, evening came. The old scholar immediately rose to take his leave. I will come again tomorrow. On hearing this, the protagonist almost laughed out loud and quickly said that he should come earlier tomorrow. But then he was startled again. Only then did he realize, wait, didn't I still end up taking lessons all day? That hateful and crafty old man. Several more days passed. During these days, he did nothing but study. Because he needed to recuperate, he also could not go to the training ground. When he was alone, the protagonist could only writhe around in bed like a worm from sheer boredom. Even Carl could tell that the eldest prince was bored out of his mind. But no matter how bored he was, writhing like a worm was still far too undignified. Just then, Adelia came to report that the royal uncle had arrived. The protagonist immediately brightened. He had not expected this guy to recover so quickly. But the moment they met, the protagonist froze. I take that back. He did not overcome the inner demon I planted in him at all. At that moment, the royal uncle spoke, and his first words were actually an apology. Not only did I break my promise, I also caused you great trauma. The protagonist had not expected him to apologize, and guilt immediately surged in his heart. Because the reason he needed to recover was purely that this frail body had forcefully used the dragon slaying him. The royal uncle's blade of air had not even scraped off a layer of his skin. Then the protagonist remembered the queen's words. He had even planted an inner demon in the royal uncle, and his guilt deepened. Just then, the royal uncle spoke again, interrupting the protagonist's thoughts. Go on. What is your wish? If you want my hand or my eye, I can give it to you. The protagonist thought, what use would I have for those? It seemed this man truly had no way to cross over his inner demon on his own. The protagonist sighed helplessly. Fine, then I'll give you a push. My wish is very simple. You accompany me on a trip. The royal uncle frowned. Can't you go wherever you want now? The protagonist said that he wanted to go somewhere farther away, at least outside the royal city. The royal uncle rejected it on the spot. Arranging a royal journey would consume a great deal of manpower and resources. Not to mention that there were many banquets lately. The protagonist said they only needed to bring a small number of people. Fine. Once it's arranged, I'll contact you. After saying that, the royal uncle turned and left. The protagonist then sharply noticed that Carl had been staring at him the whole time. The protagonist was puzzled. Why was he staring at him so directly? Carl said he was simply stunned by that wish. The royal uncle broke his promise, so you clearly could have used that wish much more ruthlessly. The protagonist said he had originally intended to do just that, but seeing that stubborn old man become like this, for some reason I felt bad too. I thought I would at least let out some of my anger. Carl also felt it. His young master had truly grown up. The protagonist did not understand what he was smiling at. Has it been too long since I disciplined you? Shut your mouth. Just then, Adelia walked up to the protagonist carrying a letter. This is a letter delivered by Sir Alvin. As she spoke, she handed the letter to the protagonist. In the letter, Alvin said that he had recently achieved no small results. It seems I will soon be able to go to your side. I hope that before that day comes, you remain in good health. After reading it, the protagonist revealed a long-absent smile of relief. This was the only good news lately. A few more days soon passed, and thanks to the royal uncle, the protagonist's group quickly set out on their journey. Traveling for the first time as a person, the protagonist was especially excited. Even when he had once been a sword, he could still perceive the world, but that had never truly been a road he had walked himself. Even the royal uncle could not help telling him to settle down in the carriage. Then tell me first, where are we going on our first stop? The royal uncle explained that their first stop was Ellen County, the royal family's largest weapons production center. There was iron ore there, and it had long supplied nobles in various places with high-quality ore. The territory also had a world-renowned blacksmith guild. It would not be an exaggeration to say that more than half of the royal family's weapons came from Ellen County. After hearing this, only two words remained in the protagonist's mind: perfect. He had just been worrying about not having a sword to use. The royal family certainly had no shortage of fine swords, but ever since the last farcical incident in which he had stabbed himself to death, the king and queen had flatly refused him entry to the armory the moment they heard he wanted to hold a sword again. At that thought, the protagonist glanced again at the royal uncle. This bargain-bin uncle looked rough, but he was actually quite thoughtful. The royal uncle was unnerved by the way he was staring. Was this brat possessed? They were both men, so why did he keep staring at his face? Then he emphasized again that the first stop of this journey really was Ellen County. It would take 3 days from the royal capital, and after another 2 days they could reach the second stop, Iron Lion Castle. We'll rest there briefly, and then prepare to return to the royal capital. After hearing the whole plan, the protagonist felt miserable. This meant he had to stay cooped up in the carriage for 3 days. And the one sitting across from him was not fun at all. At that thought, the protagonist sighed helplessly. Then I'll cultivate my heart of magic to pass this boring stretch of time. Ever since I forced myself to use the dragon slaying him last time, my heart of magic has felt alarmingly empty. Now that my mental strength has recovered, it's time to fill it again. With that thought, the protagonist prepared to replenish his heart of magic in the carriage. Magic was everywhere, the cool wind sweeping past outside the window. Even the voices of the knights outside the carriage contained large numbers of magical particles. But after gathering them for only a short while, the protagonist sensed something was wrong. Since when had his heart of magic become this large? Just then, a notification window informed the protagonist, because you once attempted the extraordinary feat of surpassing your own limits, and briefly glimpsed a fragment of that powerful will, your heart of magic has undergone a transformation. As a result, your constitution has changed significantly, and your body can now carry more magic. It has been detected that you have reached the master stage. Your link to the source will become more stable, and some authority restrictions have been lifted. Authority third eye has been significantly enhanced, and authority third ear has been significantly enhanced. The protagonist immediately felt it. He could see farther, and hear farther as well. Today's unexpected gains were simply too many. Soon, the protagonist's group arrived at Ellen County, the capital of smelting. Edgar of the Ellen family greets you. Torrance, eldest son of the Ellen family, pays his respects to your highness the prince. To meet your highness is a blessing earned over 3 lifetimes, and I hope your highness may wash away a little of the dust of the journey here. Soon, the protagonist was welcomed into the residence. In an instant, a dazzling array of weapons came into view. The protagonist's heart sank, as expected of a holy land of weapons, but these were all decorations. If this place was full of goods like these, then obtaining a truly usable weapon here would probably not be easy. At that thought, the protagonist proposed going to the blacksmith guild for a look, but Edgar showed a troubled expression, and the protagonist could not understand what was so difficult about it. Edgar explained, the blacksmiths here are all rough and stubborn. When they're working, even if I, the Lord, go there, they often ignore me, and the way they speak is as cold and hard as the iron in their hands. So if your highness feels offended because of that, please treat it as part of their craftsman's spirit and be lenient with them. The protagonist nodded indifferently. You know me. I am the most tolerant person. Soon, under the Lord's guidance, the protagonist entered the blacksmith guild. Before his eyes roared the blazing furnaces, and in his ears the bellows hissed like panting breath. The blacksmith's hammer struck the iron again and again, sending sparks spraying through the air. Flames, wind, and hammer blows wove together like a war song that belonged only to blacksmiths. The Lord even thoughtfully reminded him, the temperature here is extremely high. If your highness feels unwell, please tell me at once. But the protagonist seemed to have lost his soul, staring fixedly ahead. As expected of a pampered prince, he's already been baked stupid by the furnace. At that moment, the protagonist moved. At this moment, he did not even know what to say. Having taken human form, here I am actually seeing the appearance of the very first sword I ever became since I gained memories. Just then, the touch on his face pulled him back to reality. Adelia asked nervously whether it was too hot. The protagonist shook his head in denial. But his gaze once more fell on the blacksmith ahead. At that moment, Zack's son came over with the blacksmiths to pay their respects. The Lord introduced him at the side. He was the person in charge of the blacksmith guild. The protagonist nodded indifferently, then fixed his gaze once more on that old blacksmith. Zack's son thought the protagonist was displeased because the old blacksmith had not saluted, and hurriedly told him to stop at once and greet the prince. But before he could finish, the protagonist covered his mouth with one hand and warned him coldly, if you do not want to die, shut up. Do not do anything I have not ordered in the future. And as for you all, the iron is getting cold. If you want the furnace fire to burn for nothing, then keep standing there. The blacksmiths felt as if they had been granted amnesty and immediately returned to their stations in excitement. After doing all that, the protagonist continued standing behind the old blacksmith, watching him forge. He could not understand what this surging emotion in his heart really was, or why it had been pierced out here. Before he knew it, he had watched the old blacksmith forge until dusk. As he left, the protagonist asked the Lord what the old blacksmith's background was. The Lord said he was the most prestigious swordsmith in the area. But for some reason, in recent months he had been repeating the process of forging swords, melting swords. The protagonist frowned. Were those all failed products? The Lord shook his head helplessly. In my eyes, they were already perfect enough. I also do not understand why he melted all of them down. Inwardly, the protagonist said coldly, give me a break. The so-called perfection in your mouth is nothing more than those decorative pieces hanging in your residence. At that moment, the Lord added that he was very worried about the old swordsmith's health. He was no longer young, and yet in the past month he had hardly rested at all. Over the next few days, the protagonist came to the smithy early every morning to watch the old blacksmith work. The old blacksmith remained silent, only bowing his head and repeating his forging. The protagonist also said nothing, simply standing to one side and watching. Because of this, the Lord breathed a sigh of relief. When he first heard that the rogue eldest prince was coming, he had thought disaster was about to befall his family. Time passed quickly like this, and soon it was the night before they were to leave. That night, the old blacksmith still kept forging in silence, never stopping. I thought that before I left, I might be able to see with my own eyes the moment it was finished. After saying that, the Protagones let out a soft sigh and turned to leave. Even the Lord could feel the regret in that sigh. The Lord did not understand why the prince cared so much, but that regret pierced into his heart like a nail, making him unable to resist hoping that the prince, who had come from afar, would at least get to see the swordsmith master's finished work. So early the next morning, he hurried excitedly to the prince's residence and said the sword seemed to have been completed. Soon, the Protagones arrived where the old blacksmith was. The first rays of sunrise fell upon the old blacksmith, and though he stood in the light, he seemed strangely out of place with the world. In the next moment, the old blacksmith, holding the sword, walked up to the Protagones. "From this day on, this sword belongs to your highness." The Protagones was shaken on the spot, but the Lord was even more shocked than the Protagones. "I only wanted the prince to take a look, so I had you work overtime to finish it. How did you end up giving it away just like that?" The Protagones could not hear what they were arguing about. At this moment, both his hands were gripping the hilt tightly, completely stunned by the sword's sharpness and beauty. He asked the old blacksmith whether it had a name. The old blacksmith said he wanted to call it Dusk. The Protagones immediately pressed further. "The dusk you speak of, is it the dusk of sunset, or the dusk before dawn?" The old blacksmith answered, "To me, it is my dusk, but to your highness, it is your highness's dawn." The Protagones had not expected this old blacksmith to be so eloquent, and was just about to praise him, when in the next second, the old blacksmith collapsed to the ground and fainted. The Protagones immediately stepped forward and caught him. At that moment, Carl reminded him that they had to leave. The Protagones shook his head and instead said to the royal uncle, "Tonight, I am staying here." Night soon fell. The unconscious old blacksmith slowly woke up as well. "Your Highness, do you know? The day you first stood behind me, this sword began taking shape as if by fate. So it was not that I wanted to offer it to you, it was this sword that chose you." But the Protagones only shook his head lightly. He bent down close to the old blacksmith's ear and said something in a low voice. The old blacksmith was violently shaken after hearing it. "So that is how it is, then everything makes sense. May I borrow that sword for a moment?" Though the Protagones did not understand what he wanted to do, he still handed the sword over. "Your Highness, may this sword become as great as you are." After saying that, the old blacksmith slowly closed his eyes. If not for the fact that his breathing had already stopped, that peaceful smile would have looked almost as if he had merely fallen asleep. The Protagones' heart sank sharply, and he said in a low voice, "It certainly will become great." After burying the old blacksmith, the Protagones' group set out once more. But the Lord stopped the Protagones and said he wished to present another sword. Though this sword could not compare to the old blacksmith's treasured blade forged with the soul, it was still a superior magic sword. After hearing that, the Protagones accepted it gladly. A sword forged by a swordsmith master pouring his soul into it is already an exceedingly precious gift. I never expected you to offer me another magic sword on top of that. Once I return, I will certainly put in a few more good words for you before the king." The Lord was dumbstruck on the spot. "I was clearly trying to get that sword back, so I gave you another one instead." But he could only force out a smile. "It is my duty to serve the royal family." Soon, the Protagones' group continued on the road. Having not seen the royal uncle for several days, the Protagones asked in confusion where he had gone these past few days. The royal uncle said he had gone to carry out a task assigned by the king. "And our schedule is behind, so we must get to Iron Lion Castle as quickly as possible. Next, you'll have to ride a horse." The Protagones weakly stated that he did not know how to ride. The royal uncle was speechless on the spot. What kind of knight doesn't know how to ride? Is that even acceptable? The Protagones was also helpless. He used to be only a sword. And what family sword knew how to ride a horse? So under the instruction of the royal uncle and Carl, the Protagones began learning horsemanship. Along the way, the Protagones was either vomiting or preparing to vomit. At last, today, he had endured all the way to Iron Lion Castle. Looking at the castle, the Protagones felt that it was indeed magnificent. At that moment, a group of knights stood in formation at the gate to welcome the Protagones' arrival, and Alvin stood behind the knights. A wicked thought immediately rose in the Protagones' mind, and he slowly walked over to Alvin. Unexpectedly, Alvin struck first. "I've finally seen you again, Your Highness. Every second I spent here felt like a year, and today I can finally see Your Highness again." The moment those words were spoken, the surrounding knights exploded. "Damn that rogue prince. He actually plucked away the flower of the Iron Lion." Just then, the Protagones suddenly felt a chill down his back. He thought it was Adelia being ignited by the hostility of these knights. But was that really the case? Seeing that Adelia seemed to have been soothed by him, the Protagones thought it was fine. He then looked toward Alvin. "Come on, let's go do something interesting. If they want to come too, even better." And so the Protagones led them into the training ground. His purpose in coming here was simple: to witness the swordsmanship of the Iron Lion Knights. Among you, who is the best fighter? The knights looked at one another, but no one stepped forward. The Protagonis sighed. Do not let my status concern you. I swear in the name of the Leonberg family, I will hold no one accountable. But still no one accepted the challenge, and the Protagonis sighed again. So the famous Iron Lion Knights are only famous in name. I did not expect all of you to be so cowardly. The moment these words were spoken, the Iron Lion Knights flew into a rage on the spot. Dale stepped forward, declaring that he would beat the Protagonis until his teeth were scattered all over the ground. Then let's see whose teeth end up all over the ground. As he said this, the Protagonis crooked a finger at Dale. Dale instantly felt this was naked humiliation, and immediately charged at the Protagonis with his sword in fury. The Protagonis merely raised his sword to block, and the impact alone shook Dale into internal injury. Then with the next strike sent him flying outright. The Protagonis curled his lips into a smile. Next, who's coming? Seeing one of their own struck senseless in a single blow, the knights became even angrier. Paul also stepped out. I'll be your next opponent. Don't think you're invincible just because you beat him. Dale only joined the order a year ago. I've been here for 3 years. But in the next second, he too was sent flying by a single lift of the Protagonis' sword. Then one after another, whether they had 5 years, 8 years, or 10 years of experience, all of them were swept over by a single strike of the Protagonis' sword. Even the Protagonis was helpless. If they were going to fight, why was there so much nonsense first? Very soon, the Order's trainee knights had all been beaten flat by the Protagonis alone. The Protagonis had not expected the trainee knights to be this weak. Seems he would have to find the full knights instead. With that thought, the Protagonis looked toward Alvin at the side. In a few days, you will leave here with me. Alvin's heart leaped with joy, and she immediately answered, Wherever your highness goes, I will go. Those words made one knight completely unable to sit still. I heard that your highness likes to gamble. Then let's make a wager too, to liven things up, shall we? If I defeat your highness, Alvin stays here. The Protagonis' expression darkened instantly. Alvin could not possibly be used as a stake. He immediately signaled for Carl to bring over the magic sword. Then let's bet on something else. If you win, this magic sword is yours. The knight froze on the spot when he saw a sword of that level. Alvin also had not expected the Protagonis to stake this sword for her sake, and hurriedly tried to stop him, saying this would not do. The Protagonis cut off her words. Enough. No matter how good the sword is, it is not as important as you. You are 1,000 times, 100 times more precious than it. Alvin's cheeks instantly flushed red. She had never expected to hold such weight in his highness's heart. At that moment, Nam spoke. Then it settled. I am a full knight of the Iron Lion Knights, on the verge of completing my 3rd chain. I hope your highness will not say I am bullying the weak. The Protagonis laughed on the spot. Nicely said, but aren't you still only double chain? Tell me first, what can you offer me? Nam's anger surged up, and he raised the longsword in his hand. This sword is the 17th sword forged by a swordsmith master. I will use it as my stake. Only then did the Protagonis nod in satisfaction. And so the battle between the two began. Though your highness has gone astray, I will still give this battle my all. The Protagonis understood immediately. He was mocking the heart of magic. Then I will let you see with your own eyes, whether this truly is a wrong path. With that, the Protagonis fully activated his heart of magic. In an instant, magic surged throughout the field, and the oppressive force struck straight into the heart. Adelia, from here on, watch carefully. Adelia did not understand. Why had he suddenly called on her? Because this is the road you will walk from now on, and also the road you must walk. In the next moment, the magic within Adelia's body also erupted in response. I will watch it clearly. At the same time, the royal uncle found the person in charge of the Iron Lion Knights. One of the purposes of the royal uncle's trip was to win the support of the Iron Lion Knights. The person in charge refused outright. Impossible. All the princes are more outstanding than the eldest prince. Aside from the 4th prince, who has no interest in the throne, if I pick any of the other princes at random, it would be more worthwhile than supporting the eldest prince. And wasn't it you who pushed things to this point today? You, his royal uncle. Even if you had supported him just a little back then, he would not have fallen to his current state of being isolated and helpless. You yourself did not care about him, and now you come here asking me for support? That's nothing but a fool's dream. The royal uncle fell silent. True, the eldest prince also had his own problems. But if, when he messed up back then, I had not blamed him and had instead taught him properly, would he have become better? But what did I do at the time? I turned away and left in disappointment. Later, I even received poison wine from him. After I used magic to slowly neutralize that bottle of cheap poison of unknown origin, all I felt toward him was indifference. But one day, he suddenly changed. He began to endure harsh training, and he grew stronger day by day. At that moment, the person in charge added coldly, I remember that this was something you yourself said. The eldest prince must absolutely never become king. The royal uncle admitted it. Yes, I said that. But at least give him a chance. At least let him stand on the same starting line as the other princes. After saying that, the royal uncle bowed deeply to the person in charge. Just then, the door was suddenly shoved open. Something happened. The eldest prince has started fighting with our knights. On the way, the person in charge even reassured the royal uncle. There was no need to worry, Nam would not hurt His Highness the Prince. But the royal uncle said coldly that the one he was worried about was not His Highness. What I'm afraid of is that His Highness won't know restraint and might accidentally cripple one of your knights. The person in charge felt that the royal uncle must have drunk too much, or else he could not possibly say such nonsense. But in the next second, Nam's whole body flew out and crashed heavily in front of the two men. The person in charge's pupils shrank, and he was stunned on the spot. At that moment, another burst of cheers erupted from the arena. I can't believe His Highness won again. The person in charge became even more confused when he heard that, thinking, why again? Just moments earlier, the duel between the Protagones and Nam had officially begun. From the start, Nam held nothing back and directly unleashed his full strength. But the Protagones used only one strike to send him flying. The other full knights could not sit still any longer, and one after another stepped forward to challenge the Protagones. The Protagones said fine, but every one of them had to bring an equivalent stake. So he accepted the attacks of one knight after another. But before long, all the full knights in the arena had also been beaten down by him. It was the trainee knights' first time seeing a monster-class powerhouse like this. The more they watched, the more fired up they became, and they started cheering outright, completely forgetting that this man had come to challenge their hall. Just then, a notification informed the Protagones that he had obtained the duel hymn, and that it had risen all the way to transcendent rank in one go. The Protagones' eyes lit up on the spot, for he had not expected to stumble upon a gain like this today. But in the next second, his stamina was completely exhausted, and he collapsed straight to the ground. Just at that moment, someone supported him from the side. Your Highness's skill is truly admirable. As soon as those words fell, the entire crowd erupted in cheers once again. And so, when they finally arrived, the person in charge and the royal uncle witnessed this very scene with their own eyes. At this moment, even the person in charge, who had still disliked the Protagones just a moment ago, could not help applauding and praising him, even telling him not to worry, as they would not hold it against him. These people were simple at heart. The royal uncle also said, for a knight, an open and honorable defeat is more valuable than an improper victory. If both sides have already given their all, then victory and defeat no longer matter. The knights beside them also nodded repeatedly, though they said Nam would definitely be upset. After all, he had used the treasured sword he had bragged about for so long as a wager and handed it over to your highness. The Protagones smiled after hearing that. Ever since I came into this world in human form, I thought everything had changed. But at least one thing has never changed from beginning to end. That is that the spirit of knighthood has always been passed down by someone. Soon, the Protagones' group set out on the journey back. The Protagones smiled and motioned for everyone to stop seeing them off, then looked toward Count Havardin beside him. Please keep secret everything that happened during my stay. Havardin did not understand. If it were made public, would that not be more beneficial to your highness becoming crown prince? At that, the Protagones revealed a wicked smile. If it goes public, I'm afraid that Brat will surrender immediately. They continued traveling until the sky grew late, and only then did the royal uncle announce that they would make camp here for the night. The Protagones felt that Alvin had been acting strange all day, and at that moment Carl volunteered to patrol the surroundings, which the Protagones immediately approved. After Carl left, the Protagones turned his gaze again toward Alvin behind him, thinking that she was probably just still not used to things. With that thought, he prepared to return to his room and rest for a while first. But Adelia was already waiting in the room, and the Protagones was utterly speechless. I clearly told her not to keep doing the things a maid should do anymore. Adelia thought she must have done something wrong and displeased the Protagones. The Protagones could only sigh. You may go for now. I want to rest. Too many things have happened these past few days. I really am tired. And the Iron Lion Knights are not what I imagined. Most of the knights' talent for swordsmanship is not particularly outstanding. In the past, people like that might never have reached the level of an intermediate swordsman in their whole lives, and in the end would only be forgotten. But within the Iron Lion Knights, some people have entered the realm of swordsmanship experts while still young despite having unremarkable talent. Could it be because of the magic chain? If so, then the magic chain really does have its merits. But if that is the case, then those with truly exceptional talent may never touch the transcendent in their entire lives. At that thought, the Protagones sighed again. It seemed he still understood far too little about this era. I've decided. Starting today, I am going to seriously understand this era. At that moment, the royal uncle also arrived at the Protagones' room. I am glad you can think this way. As long as you work hard from now on, I believe you will surely realize your dream. The protagonist was full of question marks. What dream do I have? How do I not know about it? The royal uncle thought to himself that the child was playing dumb again with open eyes. You accomplished what the other princes could not, and you even got along with the Iron Lion Knights. Are you telling me you are not paving the way to become king in the future? The protagonist was stunned on the spot. This man's imagination was far too exaggerated. He had only wanted to have a really good fight. At that moment, the royal uncle continued. Do you still remember the wager we made back then? The protagonist was puzzled. You mean the wager about defeating the third prince? The royal uncle explained. The wager was to defeat a double-chain knight. Now you have already done it. And I will also fulfill my promise. From this day forward, I, Val Balakard, as a count of the kingdom and commander of the 3rd Legion, will formally support the kingdom's eldest prince in becoming crown prince. Your Highness, leave everything to me with confidence. I will definitely push you onto the seat of crown prince. After hearing this, the protagonist felt utterly terrible. When did I ever say I wanted to become king? Soon, the protagonist's group returned to the capital city, and the royal uncle's public declaration directly threw the royal city into chaos. At the same time, many people also stepped forward to publicly support the protagonist, though of course most of them were doing so for the royal uncle's sake. Because of this, the king assigned even more guards to the protagonist, and worrying that the protagonist's old ailment might relapse, he waved his hand and stuffed in a whole group of personal maids as well. The protagonist felt like he was suffocating. Can't they all just be sent back? Carl said they had all come under the king's orders, and even if your highness became crown prince, they still would not listen to you. The protagonist immediately proposed a compromise. At least do not let them appear before his eyes. They were truly too noisy. After a long while, the entire residence finally became quiet. The protagonist let out a long breath and enjoyed this hard-won moment of peace. But just then, the third prince barged in. The protagonist truly could not figure out what this bastard had come looking for him for. The third prince said coldly, "You really are good at playing dumb. Sneaking behind my back to learn swordsmanship from our royal uncle was one thing, but now you've gone and displayed such grand ambition. I was originally planning to leave you some dignity, but by doing this, how am I supposed to take it?" The protagonist listened with a frown. This brat was just spouting one absurdity after another. You committed a grave mistake, do you know that? I will make you pay a painful price for your deception. The protagonist felt this kid must have taken something, otherwise he could not be saying this kind of nonsense. After sending off the third prince, the protagonist went to find the royal uncle again and made it clear that he did not want to become king. And before making decisions, could you at least discuss them with me first? Do you have any idea how much mess I had to clean up because of that declaration of yours? The royal uncle said, I know what you are worried about. But do you not understand? What kind of fate awaits an eldest son who fails to inherit the throne? You may rest, but you cannot rest forever. If you need time, I can give you time. But there is one thing you must remember. Only when you are dead will the eldest son's legitimate right of succession disappear. The protagonist sighed helplessly, thinking, who would even want something as insignificant as the throne? What I have always wanted is only authority and power that lead to the transcendent. But after the banquet began, the protagonist's thoughts wavered. Countless nobles came to attend because of the royal uncle's support, showing just how deep the royal uncle's influence in the kingdom ran. Even the protagonist sighed inwardly, as expected of the grand commander who guarded the north. But these nobles were also absurd to an excessive degree. Their bodies were full of evil marks built from plunder and the trampling of lives. Still, among them there really were a few worth noticing. With that thought, the protagonist walked over to Tyler, and Tyler instantly broke into a cold sweat. He could not imagine that this prince, burdened with countless affairs every day, would actually still remember a minor noble from a remote mountain village like him. Has something possessed his highness? Otherwise, why does he keep staring at me? Just then, a guard signaled for everyone to be quiet. Ambassador of the Burgundy Empire, Marquis Burgundy Montpie, has arrived. As soon as the words fell, a fat noble appeared before everyone, and even greeted the protagonist with a smile, saying it had been a long time. The protagonist thought to himself, indeed, it has been a long time. But not between me and you. It has been a long time between me and the Burgundy Empire. A mortal enemy that my closest friend and I fought bitterly for years to defeat 400 years ago. The name of this country once left countless scars. And now he dares to stand here, to stand before me? Just then, a male noble spilled his drink. The protagonist also snapped out of that fury that had nearly devoured everything. The man hurriedly explained, please forgive my rudeness, your highness. I was too eager to pay my respects to your highness as soon as possible. But the protagonist did not respond, and instead turned his gaze toward Marquis Montpie at the side. Marquis Montpie froze on the spot. Why are you staring at me? I wasn't the one who spilled the drink. The entire hall instantly fell silent. After a long while, the protagonist said that he would go change his clothes first. Then asked Carl who the noble who had just bumped into him was. Carl answered, "That was Marquis Billy." At that, the protagonist's lips curved upward in an intrigued smile. It seems they aren't all rotten to the core after all. He pulled me back from my anger. Soon, the protagonist changed into a new set of clothes. After hearing about the matter, the royal uncle also hurried over. Billy Marquis said you looked like you were about to cause trouble at the banquet. Looking at your expression, he was not exactly talking nonsense. Now tell me, what exactly are you trying to do? The protagonist explained that he was not brainless. I simply do not understand. Why is the evil Burgundy family allowed to flaunt its power in the very center of the kingdom? Even the respect the nobles show him feels more genuine than what they show the royal family. So I am curious, how exactly did this country rot to such a state? The royal uncle sighed helplessly and said the reason was actually not complicated. In the past, the kingdom also firmly resisted the empire's invasions, and every knight stepped forward and devoted his strength. But as time passed, the empire grew stronger and stronger, and the gap was completely widened. In the end, the empire became a superpower, and the kingdom had no choice but to bow its head. As soon as those words were spoken, the protagonist's heart shook violently. Was it because of the hymns? Though the kingdom was only a small nation at the edge of the continent, it had once possessed hymns capable of standing against a mighty empire. Since its founding, they had been continuously accumulated and continuously refined. Some were ordinary, some extraordinary. Sometimes they were heroic tales, sometimes legends, and sometimes they were even revered as myths. Those were the martial saint hymns. But now, the kingdom had lost all of those hymns. At that thought, the protagonist sighed softly, his tone calm but cold. I have changed my mind. I have decided to give it a try, to see whether I can become the king of this country. Perhaps I will regret it in the future, but this is something I must do. After all, half of this country is mine. After saying that, the protagonist returned to the banquet hall with the royal uncle. Only when they heard the royal uncle had arrived did the nobles reluctantly bend and salute. Seeing this, the protagonist laughed inwardly. If they treat even the royal uncle like this, then there is no need to mention how they treated Marquis Shibi just now. Back in the early days of the kingdom, he was probably faced with scenes just like this. Because he was nothing more than a country boy from a remote mountain village. Everyone looked down on him from the bottom of their hearts. But in the end, he still stood before them all. Just like I am now. These nobles have not changed at all. From beginning to end, they have all been blind. With that thought, the protagonist activated another hymn once more. The window kept warning him, with his current constitution, he could not bear it. But compared with the dragon slaying him, this one had not yet reached the point of being unbearable. When the final section of the hymn fell, the protagonist appeared before the crowd wearing a crown. The nobles all stared in stunned disbelief. The protagonist thought to himself, the effect was not bad. He was just about to press the advantage and say a few harsh words, when an energy rose nearby that made him recoil from the depths of his soul. The protagonist's heart sank. Across all ages, there were only a handful of people who could make him instinctively reject them. So why did it have to be this madwoman of the elf race? Elves were called by the world the most perfect creations of God. But the protagonist knew very well that beneath that nearly perfect appearance hid hearts twisted to the extreme. They would lure you closer with their beauty, and then deal you a fatal blow at your weakest and most relaxed moment. And this woman was also a classic Yandra. But in the next second, he forced himself to calm down. I am not a sword now. Even if I recite it to him, she knows well, she cannot possibly recognize that I am Gruhan. Sigru looked at the protagonist curiously. Have we met before? There is a very familiar aura about you, as if we once came into close contact. The protagonist had not expected her sense for such things to be this absurd, so he immediately explained that this was the first elf he had ever met in his life. Sigru's face was full of disbelief. Because when humans met elves for the first time, they usually had only two kinds of reactions. The first was to be captivated by an elf's beauty. The second was that those with extremely high martial attainment would instead become wary of being captivated. But you say this is your first time seeing me, yet you were not captivated by me. And as far as I know, you have not reached the realm of a martial powerhouse either. The protagonist could only force himself to explain that his tastes were a little special. After hearing that, disgust immediately appeared on Sigru's face. I respect everyone's tastes. After saying that, she turned and left. Only then did the protagonist let out a long sigh of relief. That should mean she won't torment me again, right? But a few days later, the protagonist was completely dumbfounded. The queen was actually choosing consorts for him. But what was the deal with this one still sucking on a pacifier? And this one too, she looked difficult at a glance. The protagonist could not understand at all how things had turned out like this, while the queen was still beside him trying to persuade him. For a prince's spouse, it was enough as long as she could bring the support of a distinguished family. Just as the words fell, a guard's announcement sounded from outside the door. Immediately afterward, the elven delegation led by Sigru appeared before the queen. I am Sigru of the Misuto family, and I offer my sincere greetings to the beautiful Queen Margaret. The queen was puzzled. The elven delegation had not come to the kingdom for a long time. So what was she doing here? Sigru said she had merely heard that the queen was choosing a consort for the prince. And I am a high elf. In human terms, that means I come from a distinguished noble lineage. Most importantly, my age is not too far from that of His Highness the Prince. The protagonist was stunned on the spot. Is that something a human could say? You're nearly 1,000 years old, while this body of mine is only 16 at most. At that moment, Sigru below spoke again. In truth, the moment I first saw His Highness the Prince, I felt that our fates had already intertwined. A chill went through the protagonist's heart. Elves never lied about fate or emotions, and this one sentence had struck both exactly. She really wants to become my consort? Once he realized that, the protagonist could no longer sit still. He simply could not understand what this madwoman was trying to do. He immediately dragged Sigru away from the scene. And after walking into an empty room, the protagonist directly demanded to know her true purpose. I only want to improve the relationship between my family and the kingdom. What ulterior motive could there be? The protagonist shot back coldly. Do you think anyone would believe that? A butcher like you, who has been doing dirty work for your family for centuries, is now saying you came to improve relations? Tell me the truth. Are you here to investigate, or to carry out a judgment? A playful smile appeared on Sigru's face when she heard that. It seems my first impression was right. You really are very interesting. But how do you know those things about me? A numb chill ran through the protagonist's heart. I can't exactly say you once forced me to attend your bed countless times. And she is even stronger now than she was centuries ago. She is so strong that she can glimpse the past carved into my fate and sense that our paths had once intertwined. But for the sake of my happiness in the second half of my life, I cannot retreat. I truly do not want this madwoman to toy with me all night ever again. Just then, Sigru spoke. Since you know I am a butcher, then you should also know what happened when one remains silent in front of a butcher. The protagonist replied calmly, I know very well. But I also know equally well what happens when one talks too much in front of a butcher. I told you these things only because I want you to stop taking an interest in my fate. After saying that, the protagonist looked confidently at Sigru before him, thinking, this is enough to fully arouse her curiosity. As long as he became the kind of prey in her eyes that needed to be savored slowly, this round would be secure. Sure enough, in the next second, Sigru stepped closer and quietly pressed him on who he really was. I am nothing more than a pitiful child abandoned by his own father. But I will definitely rise by force. If you are curious, then wait and see. After hearing that, it was as if Sigru had suddenly figured something out. No wonder the family sent an elder like me to carry out such a trivial and boring task. At this moment, I finally understand. The protagonist had no idea what she now understood again. Of course, everything is because of you. The protagonist was speechless. After all these centuries, this madwoman has become stronger, but her brain has not changed one bit? Forget it, as long as I achieve my goal, that's enough. In the next moment, the protagonist took Sigru's hand and walked straight before the queen. I have decided to become engaged to Sigru. Just wait, Sigru, you wicked woman. I will use this period of time to make you respect me, worship me, fall in love with me, and finally become unable to let me go. And then, everything you did to me before, I will make you pay back in full, with interest. This news quickly reached the third prince's ears. At this moment, the third prince was trembling with rage, utterly unable to understand what kind of luck his useless elder brother had stumbled into. Taking the flower of the Iron Lion was one thing, but then our royal uncle suddenly announced his support for him. And now even that elf has become his fiancée. Damn it, I was the one who liked her first. The moment I first saw her, I had already thought of names for our children. Since you, my useless elder brother, have chosen to be heartless, then don't blame me, your third brother, for being ruthless. On the day of the duel, I will smash you to pieces right in front of her and make her completely lose interest in you. Time quickly advanced to the day of the duel. Hilda, commander of the Silver Lion Knights, stepped forward and announced the rules. Now, your highnesses, please raise the swords in your hands. The protagonist thought to himself, this old man has finally finished talking, but why are there so many spectators? As he drew his sword, the third prince said that he was the one who had called all these people here, to let your heroic bearing, dear elder brother, be passed down for all time. I specially invited so many spectators. I hope you won't disappoint everyone. The protagonist replied, you really do talk too much, child. I don't remember you ever being quiet before. The third prince flew into a rage on the spot. Once this duel is over, let's see if you can still talk so tough. With that, he raised his sword and charged straight at the protagonist. The protagonist let out a light sigh. I was only joking, brother. Why are you in such a hurry? I had originally planned to play with you a little longer. As soon as those words fell, he stopped concealing his aura, and his second turn cultivation was instantly revealed. The entire arena fell deathly silent on the spot. The third prince was then easily defeated by the protagonist in a single strike, and collapsed to the ground, losing consciousness outright. Hilda, who had once been the protagonist's teacher, was completely dumbfounded. He had taught him for years and he had seemed like trash, yet after being taught by the royal uncle for only a few months, how had he become like this? He had even effortlessly crushed the third prince, the swordsmanship prodigy known as the strongest below 3 chains. To this, the protagonist merely let out a cold laugh. So-called strongest below 3 chains, at the end of the day, he is still only double chain. Now, announce the result. Hilda swallowed hard. As the arbitrator and witness of this duel, I rule that the third prince is unable to continue the duel. The victor, the eldest prince. The news instantly spread throughout the kingdom, causing an enormous uproar. The nobles who supported the third prince could not understand how he had lost. Wasn't he supposed to be the strongest below 3 chains? And yet he was defeated by that publicly acknowledged useless eldest prince? A few days later, the third prince, who had been knocked unconscious by the protagonist in a single strike, finally woke up. The moment he thought of how he had lost face before so many nobles, he immediately ordered the guards to prepare his equipment so he could win back his reputation. But a knight told him that after the duel ended, the eldest prince had already left the capital with the royal uncle. The scene shifted to the protagonist's side. The royal uncle also did not understand. Why was he in such a hurry to go north? Couldn't he rest for a few more days? Because there is nothing left for me to do in the capital. And I also don't want to win over those nobles who refuse to acknowledge the ruler of their own country yet bow and scrape before the empire. Besides, I feel that compared to nobles, soldiers and knights suit me better. The royal uncle reminded him. They were not as calculating as nobles, but winning their hearts would not be easy either. The protagonist felt the royal uncle was worrying too much. I believe that as long as we roll around together in the mud, feelings will grow where there were none before. Even so, I still think you're in too much of a hurry. But the protagonist had troubles he could not speak of. What, am I supposed to say that the biggest reason I'm leaving in such a hurry is to avoid Sigru? If I don't leave soon, this body will probably be ruined by her. So before that happens, I have to become stronger as quickly as possible. The capital is too peaceful, and my strength can only grow so much there. But the distant northern battlefield is different. It is the place where humanity has been tested the most since ancient times, and also the place where the most hymns were born. There, I can temper my sword, and I can temper my sword edge as well. That is where I ought to go. Just then, the royal uncle reminded him that they had already reached the Blade Mountains, the border his family had guarded for their entire lives. But do you want to get inside the carriage and hide for a while? You look badly frozen. The protagonist said he had to get used to this kind of cold as soon as possible. More importantly, that old man is occupying an entire carriage by himself. I really cannot understand why that scholar insists on following us to the northern battlefield. The scholar said his greatest wish was simply to see the north with his own eyes. And I guarantee that the book I have written this time will definitely interest your highness. But you must promise this old man one thing. You must read it alone in the dead of night, or else my late reputation will be ruined. As he spoke, he cast a meaningful glance toward Alvin in front. At once, Alvin's face flushed bright red when she heard the two of them talking. The protagonist thought she was merely red from the cold, and suggested that she go into the carriage and rest. Alvin immediately answered in a righteous tone, I am a knight. How can a knight covet temporary comfort? Let me accompany you on foot. The protagonist nodded in satisfaction after hearing that. This child really does have spirit. I was right not to misjudge her when I took her in as my personal knight. Compared with her, those people are far worse. Most of them are probably still sullen over having been dragged here by royal decree. If only Carl were here, he could keep them all perfectly in line. But because of that narrow-minded old man, Carl can't come north with me. This body is clearly his own flesh and blood. I truly did many evil things in the past, and I have spent these last few months doing my best to make up for them. Yet his attitude is still this excessive. Could there be something behind all this that I still don't know? Just then, the royal uncle said that a blizzard was about to arrive. We need to speed up. But even though they had already increased their pace, the drifting snow quickly turned into a true blizzard. People could not even hear the voices of those beside them. They only heard the royal uncle shouting through magic, abandon the carriages, keep only the horses, and proceed on foot. Adelia was also helped down from the carriage by the protagonist. Adelia thanked him in a soft voice. Just then, however, the protagonist saw the knights bracing themselves against the blizzard with their shields raised. He barked in anger on the spot, you idiots. The knights looked completely confused, having no idea what they had done wrong. If you carry shields that big, the wind will use you like sails. Throw away every burden except your swords and move forward in a single line. After saying that, he looked toward the large man beside him and motioned for him to go to the very front and open the way. The group continued forward like this against the snowstorm. This did indeed reduce the pressure of the wind, but no one was having an easy time. Soon, one knight could no longer endure it and collapsed directly to the ground. In the next moment, the protagonist pushed through the crowd and walked up to that knight, then hoisted him onto his own shoulder. The surrounding knights were stunned on the spot. A prince was personally carrying a wounded soldier. Don't just stand there. Move! Before long, Winter Fortress, the stronghold of the royal uncle's family, appeared before everyone's eyes. At that very moment, the blizzard suddenly stopped. The protagonist was so angry he almost laughed, feeling as though the thieving heavens had played him for a fool. It didn't stop earlier, and it didn't stop later. But the moment we arrived, it stopped. Suddenly, the royal uncle in the crowd stepped to the very front of the fortress. In the next moment, he saluted with his arm placed against his chest. As the lawful ruler of Balakard, and as commander of the kingdom's 3rd Legion, I hereby sincerely welcome the visit of the eldest prince. Welcome to Winter Fortress. Winter Fortress existed to block the monsters entrenched in the Blade Mountains. But this place was battered year-round by extreme weather, and many soldiers came once and never wanted to come a second time. Secular nobles repeatedly weighed Winter Fortress's political value. But to those born and raised in Balakard, this place was the duty of their entire lives, and the source of their pride. Vincent Balakard was one of the hardest among that pride. From today onward, I end my duties as acting commander and return to my post as commander of the Ranger Corps. Father, to see you return safely. I am truly glad. The Protagones had not expected the royal uncle to have such a grown son, but the two of you really do look alike, especially that mouth that looked stubborn at first glance. The royal uncle's face went speechless. Surely you didn't think I didn't even have a child? He then introduced him to Vincent. This is His Highness Prince Adrian, the eldest prince. In an instant, all sorts of rumors about the Protagones echoed through Vincent's mind. Even so, he still saluted respectfully. I, Vincent of the Balakard family, commander of the Balakard Ranger Corps, pay my respects to His Highness the eldest prince. In truth, Vincent was deeply displeased inside. He did not understand why his father had brought this rogue here. Winter Fortress was a fortress that warriors were willing to give their lives to defend for the sake of conviction. Not a place for a rogue who had been driven out of the capital and wandered around with women. At that moment, a soldier suggested first taking the Protagones to tour the fortress. The moment the Protagones left, Vincent could no longer hold back and asked the royal uncle what exactly he meant by this. The royal uncle said he had already decided to become Adrian's protector, and so he would remain in Balakard for the time being. The moment those words were spoken, Vincent was completely stunned. Didn't you say yourself that he was useless? Even His Majesty found him troublesome. So why are you doing this, father? Hearing that, the royal uncle did not answer immediately, but instead turned his gaze toward the Protagones, who was about to tour Winter Fortress. People do change in the end. I have only one request for you. Do not look at him with prejudice. Once you have seen for yourself, you will understand why I am doing this. Soon, the group arrived at the Great Hall, and the royal uncle also asked about the recent progress in clearing out the surrounding monsters. Vincent said that he had been steadily reducing their numbers by personally leading teams, but many areas had still not been fully cleared. Now that father has returned, it is time for us to act again. But there is one place that is especially troublesome. A group of fewer than 100 orcs has settled near the entrance to the mountain range. A force of that size cannot be dealt with by ranger arrows alone. So I am selecting knights stationed within the fortress. At that moment, the Protagones stepped forward. Leave it to me. The moment he said that, everyone felt a chill run down their backs, and they hurried to dissuade him. The orcs of the Blade Mountains were not like ordinary orcs. If anything went wrong, it would become a major problem for us. But the Protagones turned his gaze toward the royal uncle, and the royal uncle understood with a single glance. He then asked Vincent what had been confirmed regarding the orc size and combat strength. Vincent answered, at present, the number of confirmed orcs is no more than 20. Although no orc warriors or orc shamans have been found yet, that does not mean we can conclude there are none. After hearing that, the royal uncle looked again at the Protagones. You've heard it all, and you still dare say you're confident? Vincent hurriedly tried to stop them. The mountain entrance is one of the Ranger Corps' main routes. If we lose control there, it will turn into a long-term battlefield, and our later operations will become far more difficult. And if anything happens to your highness, the entire situation in Balakard will descend into chaos. The royal uncle merely shook his head lightly, signaling Vincent not to say more, then looked at the Protagones and asked what he needed. The Protagones said that he needed several guides, and have my people change their equipment. Lend us some crossbows as well. The royal uncle said none of that would be difficult. Soon, the guides came before the Protagones. Then let's set out. One guide asked in confusion, set out to where? You don't know? We received a mission, to conquer an orc tribe. There are 20 enemies, and among them there may or may not be orc warriors or orc shamans. But your highness, we came here in the role of escorts, and now that the 3rd Legion has arrived, why are we still needed? Since you have to follow me and protect me anyway, the 3rd Legion will be looking for you today. Go get your equipment now, then come report back to me." The 3 guides could only nod helplessly in agreement. These men were indeed elites selected by the royal family, and their abilities were genuinely not bad. But among them there seemed to be one especially suspicious fellow mixed in. The Protagonistes vaguely felt that this operation would not be boring. Soon, Vincent also came to find the Protagonistes and said that he too would accompany them now as a guide. "Your Highness may not understand, but if this operation fails, the consequences will exceed your imagination." The Protagonist said that he would not fail. "Your Highness is taking things too lightly." The two stood in direct opposition. The invisible smell of gunpowder between them grew thicker and thicker. In the next moment, the Protagonistes once again activated authority appraisal, and the information of Vincent and the soldiers appeared before his eyes. To become a 3-chain knight at such a young age was indeed not bad. But among the people behind him, only one was a real ranger. All the others were knights disguised as rangers. So their plan is this: if anything goes wrong, they'll throw me aside and clean up the mess themselves. Thinking of this, the Protagonistes signaled that they should set out immediately. And just like that, the group embarked on the road to subjugate the orcs. Along the way, Vincent kept reminding the Protagonistes in his ear without pause, "When walking, you must preserve your strength as much as possible. Once your stamina drops, your limbs will stiffen, and battle will spiral out of control. Especially in a snowy region like the Blade Mountains, you must stay alert at all times." The Protagonistes felt a headache coming on from listening. How could this kid nag without end? Didn't his mouth ever get dry? Just then, a running rabbit caught the Protagonistes' attention. But one of the soldiers raised his telescope with a grave expression. Several orcs entered his field of vision. He immediately reported to the Protagonistes in sign language, "An orc squad has been spotted ahead. How do we fight this?" The Protagonistes immediately raised a hand, signaling them to prepare. In the next moment, the soldiers took out their issued crossbows, and the metallic sounds of drawing them soon alerted the orcs. At the Protagonistes' command, a rain of bolts poured out, instantly crippling most of the orcs' combat strength. The orcs let out earth-shaking roars, and killing intent filled the valley. The Protagonist drew the sword at his waist, and in the next second, he leaped straight at a huge orc. That orc's roar came to an abrupt halt, while the Protagonist revealed an almost pathological smile. He had finally found what he had been missing. The sound of footsteps, the roar of murderous intent, the sticky stench of blood in the air. This was the true smell of the battlefield he had been seeking all along. Just then, Alvin rushed forward and nervously asked whether the Protagonist was hurt. But before she could finish, the Protagonist stopped her. "Don't come any closer. You'll get caught up in it." A memory and a hymn crashed violently into the Protagonist's mind. A story that could be traced back many years, perhaps even longer. In that era, orcs were not yet monsters, but one of the proudest rulers of the continent. This story was not myth, nor did it concern a hero. He was merely a man who had not even left his name in history. A pitiful mantomb of hatred for the orcs. A sorrowful elegy of a father who fought until he was utterly exhausted. He wandered ceaselessly through the wasteland ruled by orcs, for no reason but to find the blood of his enemies. Even when the magic within his body had long since run dry, he did not stop. Because of this, he grew weaker and weaker, and I, as the magic sword in his hand, supported him. To fulfill his final wish, I kept burning away his life. In the end, I slaughtered them all, just as they had once done to him. This was the requiem he played for his wife and daughter. In the end, the lifelong archenemy of his life appeared. Though by then he was already exhausted in both body and soul, he still used the last of his strength to bring his blade down. But this world does not contain that many miracles. He failed. He was crushed beneath the foot of the Orc Lord. But even until the final moment, he never gave up. His dying words were forgotten because they were too ancient. And so his story ended, unknown to all, never once told. The Protagonist awoke from the memory, and without knowing when it had happened, his feet were already surrounded by the corpses of orcs. While the knights beside him were still desperately holding back the orcs' counterattack. And seeing this, the Protagonist gripped the sword in his hand once more. Even if that person's story had already ended, the hymn of vengeance had not yet ended. Only when the orc corpses had piled into a small hill, and crimson blood had spread across the ground at his feet, did the last orc finally fall. At that point, the hymn of vengeance was finally complete. At that very moment, Vincent personally smashed the orc's banner as well, and with that blow, declared victory in this battle. It seems, that pitiful man's name was Vincent too. I truly did not expect that the heir of a family who fought monsters all his life would share the same name as that Avenger. Back then, in order to exterminate the orcs, he had even thrown away his own life. Just then, that line that had originally long been forgotten also emerged clearly in the Protagonist's mind. Even if there is a next life, I will still walk the same path. Thus the battle with the orcs came to an end, and the hymn of vengeance transformed into a requiem. Holding the orc's banner, Vincent walked solemnly up to the Protagonist. "Now, please accept it." The protagonist did not understand why he should accept a broken banner. Vincent explained that this was Winter Fortress tradition. The bravest knight had the right to take the enemy's banner. This is an honor no one can replace. And you were the one who slew the most orcs in this battle. So this banner can belong to no one but you. Just then, several knights led by Alvin also stepped forward. We salute the extraordinary courage your highness displayed in battle. Please allow us to offer our highest respect to your highness, the brave prince. After hearing that, the protagonist felt instantly satisfied. When he had been a sword in his last life, no one had ever respected him like this. Thinking of that, the protagonist raised the banner in his hand and declared victory in the subjugation battle. Dozens of knights raised loud cheers as well. From now on, I am the master of this banner. At the side, Vincent muttered quietly, I have some too. The protagonist froze, thinking he had misheard. You didn't mishear. I have orc banners too, 16 of them. After hearing that, the protagonist immediately understood. So this guy really is like that old man, same name, same personality. This is not a coincidence. There may truly be some inexplicable connection between them. With that thought, the protagonist raised the banner again. So what if you have 16? As long as this one is mine, that's enough. After the celebration ended, the group began cremating the knights who had died bravely in this battle. The heaviest sorrow in the world is when the living bid farewell to the dead. Everyone watched that scene from afar, and no one remained unmoved. Vincent was still at the side comforting everyone, saying that these casualties were already the lowest they had ever suffered in battle against the orcs. But Alvin felt that even so, it was still brutal, still deeply tragic. That is war. Only through more victories can we truly mourn the dead and pay tribute to them. And I too will console their spirits with more orc blood. That is the Balacard family's way, Winter Fortress's way, and my way, Vincent's way. Those words pulled the protagonist back into memory once again. They do not just share the same name, even the things they say after battle are almost the same. Could he really be that old man's reincarnation? At that thought, the protagonist shook his head helplessly. Still, I don't remember us setting out with this many people. The moment those words fell, Vincent was startled. He hurried to explain, a ranger unit happened to be passing by, so they joined the battle as well. That is far too much of a coincidence. Yes, very coincidental. But what concerns me more is why the orc force was able to come this deep without even the rangers noticing. We had better return as soon as possible and report the situation. Soon, the group returned to Winter Fortress. By the time they arrived, the royal uncle had already been waiting outside the gates of Winter Fortress for a long time. Only after seeing that everyone had returned safely did he finally let out a breath of relief. The moment the protagonist saw the royal uncle, he ran over excitedly and immediately started showing off the orc banner in his hand. At once, voices of praise rose one after another. His Highness the Prince is amazing. His Highness is bragging about that again. This is already the 11th time on the way back. Doesn't he ever get tired of it? The protagonist of course would not get tired of it, and even wanted to show off one more time in front of the royal uncle. But the royal uncle was currently listening to Vincent's report. Vincent explained all the suspicious points to the royal uncle. And after hearing them, the royal uncle nodded. I wanted to let you rest properly, but now the matter is urgent. After saying that, he signaled for Vincent to go back with him to discuss it, and the two of them walked toward the interior of Winter Fortress. But Vincent stopped as he passed by the protagonist, not understanding why the protagonist had been staring at him the whole time. After a moment of silence, Vincent finally spoke, Your Highness has worked hard as well. Please return and get some proper rest. The protagonist had not expected the sour-faced kid to say something like that. Was he just putting on an act? Alvin felt that was not it. Perhaps he was simply embarrassed about changing his attitude. Just then, Adelia, who had not gone on the subjugation mission, also ran out from inside Winter Fortress. Seeing that your highness is safe, I am relieved. The protagonist felt his heart warm at once upon hearing that, then raised the banner again. Do you know what this is? Alvin thought, here we go again. Adelia, please don't answer him. But Adelia still answered, and so a new round of showing off began. Night soon fell, and Vincent came to find the protagonist, saying that he would reorganize a ranger unit to scout the mountain region again. Because we cannot confirm what unknown factors may exist in the mountains, we are choosing only elites capable of professional reconnaissance. This means your highness does not need to participate personally. Those words left the protagonist speechless. I never said I was going, did I? You came all the way to my room just to say this? Vincent explained that the royal uncle had sent him. It seems the royal uncle wants me to get along with him. After all, we count as brothers too. Thinking of this, the protagonist nodded lightly. Understood. You may go. After Vincent left, the protagonist sighed helplessly. Getting along with him was not difficult, but the thought that he might be the reincarnation of the protagonist's comrade from when he had been a sword made things feel awkward. At that thought, the protagonist's gaze fell again on the captured orc banner. In today's battle, he truly had thrown himself in a little too deeply. The reason was that for the first time, he had completely recited an ancient hymn. Because the hymns I remember do not fully belong to me. So in the future, I may experience similar feelings again and again. I must make these things, which seem to belong to me yet do not truly belong to me, completely mine. Just as I evolved the hymn of vengeance into a requiem. Suddenly, an evil aura shot straight into the protagonist's senses. A bird appeared by the room's window, and pecked at the glass with its beak, signaling for me to open it. The protagonist's heart sank. He actually did not want to do so, because he had already guessed who had sent this strange bird. But he still let it in. In the next second, the bird actually spoke. "Do you like the gift I sent you?" The protagonist frowned and asked the other party what gift she meant. Then he noticed that the moment the bird entered, it stepped directly onto the captured orc banner. "So it was you who caused the orc force to appear at the foot of the mountain? I merely hoped that your highness would accept a greater challenge. Could it be that your highness is unwilling even to accept my kindness?" The protagonist frowned more deeply in displeasure. She actually wants me to accept her kindness. Dozens of lives were lost because of this, and she still dares to keep speaking like this. He also remembered why he had originally loathed the elf race so much, especially this woman. Because elves were naturally obsessive and watched others like voyeurs, and this woman was the worst of them all. Not a trace of mourning for the rangers who had died could be seen on her, nor even the slightest bit of grief. Thinking of this, the protagonist could no longer suppress his irritation and directly cut her off. "Enough nonsense. You're so cold to me. But that is how unrequited love is. It is always accompanied by countless pains. I can only hope that one day your highness will be willing to open your arms to me." Who knew where this elf had learned such shameless lines? But even if she waits a lifetime, that day will never come. Just as the protagonist thought that, it suddenly flew down to his ear and told him that deep in the mountains was something he currently needed. There is a very ancient existence sleeping there. As long as you turn it into lyrics, I guarantee it will become the most exquisite hymn. The protagonist was just about to ask what exactly was in the mountains, when at that very moment, the bird by the window began to twist in a disgusting way. "I know your highness still has many questions, but this cute little thing has run out of time. Until we meet again, your highness." Before the words had even finished, the bird exploded before the protagonist's eyes, its organs and blood splattering all over him. That damned elf, she had to make me miserable even at the very end. "Just wait, one day I will kill you." Why one day? Because right now I still can't beat her. It is also obvious why she came all the way here to tell me this. She needs something from me, and that is hymns. Since ancient times, elves have been the most perfect listeners and the most perfect chanters, because they cannot become storytellers themselves. So they long to weave others' hymns into their own melodies and sing them through sword dances. She gave me intelligence because she wants to use me to obtain a deeper, more complete hymn. I don't want to dance to her tune, but just this once, I will cooperate. Early the next morning, the protagonist went to find Vincent and directly asked about the mountains. But Vincent said that not a single person who had ventured deep into those mountains had ever come back alive. The rangers did indeed enter the mountain region often and knew the outskirts like home, but even they only dared operate along the outer edges. The protagonist knew Vincent had no reason to lie, but he was still unwilling to give up and continued pressing him, even if he could get only one useful clue. Vincent could only shake his head helplessly. Their task was to stop the monsters in the mountains from coming down, not to explore that mountain range. If Vincent's words were true, then that meant no one knew what was really in the mountains, and the protagonist found that unbelievable. Because in the past, in order to seize the chance to step into the transcendent realm, knights would travel the world and explore everywhere. And it was precisely because they explored so thoroughly that the mysteries of this world were nearly exhausted, making it harder and harder for later generations to ever touch the transcendent realm again. Yet here and now, this place still preserved a true forbidden zone, still shrouded in mystery. It seems coming to Balakard was the right choice. Just as he thought this, Vincent beside him spoke again. "You had better not set your sights on those mountains." The protagonist smiled and said that he was not going yet now. Those words were not merely to placate him, because he truly did not intend to enter the mountains just yet. Of course he wanted to know what that thing in the mountains actually was. By the bird's description, it was at least an existence of heroic rank. "I want to rush straight in, but now is not the time. I need more battles, more victories. And Balakard is a land of unending war. It seems that coming here was the clearest decision I have made in this life." But he had not expected battle to come so quickly. Not long after, he brought Alvin to the wall where the royal uncle was, and with a frown asked what exactly was attacking this time. After hearing that, the royal uncle raised a hand in motion for him to look outside the city. Puzzled, the protagonist looked up, only to see the rangers on the mountain retreating in panic. The protagonist's heart sank, because the rangers of Winter Fortress were almost all seasoned veterans, and for something to push them into such a state, the monsters coming could not possibly be weak. In the next moment, the green-skinned monsters came into view. The soldiers on the wall were still anxiously shouting for their comrades outside to run faster. They were about to enter the archers' range. But the Protagones felt that something was wrong, and the royal uncle nodded heavily as well. Those wolf riders are toying with these rangers. There is no way they cannot catch them, and after chasing them this long they still show no sign of fatigue. On the contrary, some of our soldiers are already so exhausted they can barely run. Just then, one ranger suddenly stopped in his tracks. In the next second, he turned around and directly faced the pursuing wolf rider. "You damned green-skinned bastards, your opponent is a ranger of Halabad." But the moment the words left his mouth, he was swallowed whole by the wolf rider's mount. The instant that scene appeared, the wall, which had been noisy a moment before, fell into dead silence. Some people's eyes reddened immediately, some even nearly cried. Those still outside the wall also gritted their teeth, grabbed their nearly ruined swords, and charged at the wolf riders like madmen, watching their lives bloom like red flowers across the pale white snow, while the excited howls of the orcs trampling lives still echoed in his ears. The Protagones suppressed his fury and directly shoved aside Vincent, who was blocking him. Vincent froze, not understanding what he was trying to do. The Protagones explained coldly, "They are trying to lure us out of the city, and they are issuing us a challenge to a duel. Now I also know what that ancient existence sleeping in the mountains is. Because these orcs have been repeating one sentence the whole time. I will wage a battle of honor, reclaim my legion's glory, for the great king." That is what they have been shouting at the top of their lungs this whole